One strawberry milkshake coming right up.
Fireman, I recognize your face. Very Aryan face it is too. Are you at a Station 1?
Some games deserve admiration for their high production values and technical proficiency. Some games deserve respect for diversifying the landscape and making their voice heard through the crowd. Some games deserve esteem for executing on ideas so well that publishers and developers for years to come will be inspired by them. But for those games that are a cut above the best, they deserve only the highest of accolades. In this unedited discussion, myself and two trusted experts will be breaking into a number of games of the past year that we feel deserve to be celebrated in detail. Not to mention views on what we're still playing, and what we're looking forward to most in 2018. I'm James, and along with Kieran and Joseph, it's time to decide what game is most deserving of the Big D. As a preface, this video will be composed mostly of still images. If you want to tab out of this video and listen just to the audio, feel free to do so. There will be spoilers throughout, and time codes below if you want to skip or jump to a particular discussion. Without further ado, there you go.
And let's go.
Are we recording?
Yes, we are recording.
No one told me this would be recorded, James.
Yeah, I'm nervous now.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm alright. Having a milkshake, having a vape.
Having a milkshake, having a vape. That's fantastic.
Can't go wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
Christmas decorations are almost up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Christmas
we're
is
feeling
coming.
festive.
That's very true. And what a year it's been. 2017.
It has been a year.
It has.
It was been better than 2016,
You reckon?
in which a lot of celebrities died.
That's very true. I mean, celebrities did die this year as well, though. I would say that much.
But I can't name one, so...
You know what? Neither can I. Which probably goes to show that they probably weren't as good as the ones who passed away in 2016.
Get your act together, 2017.
Come on, 2017. In regards to 2016, though, quite a lot of very good games came out. Some of them still quite light. One game in particular that did come out in 2016, which I think we're both still playing and we're all very excited about, is a certain game called Overwatch.
Oh,
Yeah. Overwatch, which...
I played Overwatch 3 times.
Yes, I have played Overwatch 6 times, I believe. I haven't played it much, but I have been playing it since talking about it, and it is improving bit by bit.
And I've put 250 something hours in since day one. So, yeah.
Oh.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's good. It is the hero shooter, isn't it? As League of Legends is to MOBA games, Overwatch is to the hero shooter. So
Yeah, I mean, it does what it does, and it's probably the best at doing what it does, and it deserves its place kind of the top of the ranks of hero shooters, really.
I would absolutely agree with that.
And James, I know you don't like the fact that everyone has robot arms, but I like the fact that everyone has robot arms.
And that's good, because in both 2016 and 2017, in regards to a lot of the design trends of the 90s and the early 2000s still seems to be carried on in regards to grizzled military men and all that stuff. Having characters that look like the ones from Overwatch isn't just uplifting for diversity's sake, but is uplifting from a creative standpoint as well. So for that, I have to give them the benefit.
It does make me happy, the fact that something with, the design trend that isn't just grizzled macho army shooters became so popular.
Yes, absolutely, and it's
among the fan base of games, like not to say that they're bad games, but among the fan base of people who play games like Call of Duty and
absolutely.
Battlefield.
Games are made for gamers by gamers, really, aren't they? So
absolutely.
It ends to be that like the macho games are made because the people making them like macho games, which have been made because the people making them like macho games. So it's nice to see that, like, that break in that kind of link of muscly men.
Of course. And I mean, it's interesting because it's something that I think Blizzard do particularly well versus other people in regards to, even if it's kind of realistic or even if it's just, well, I mean, all their stuff sort of kind of has a not abstract quality to it, but almost like a kind of a polished, stylistic quality to it. Like even in their sci-fi stuff, like StarCraft or fantasy stuff, it all,
It's all almost kind of caricature.
Yeah, I would
caricature and overemphasis on the design, and it's not something you see massive amounts of these days, especially in the real popular trends of video games. Especially
no, absolutely,
for sure.
I would say it's quite interesting though that not to jump too far ahead, of course, but some of the games that we've picked as our Game of the Years that we're going to talk about have all sort of followed this trend as well in regards to not really hyper-realism, more just kind of a move towards artistic realism or artistic just statement in regards to how they look.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, without going too far ahead myself, obviously a lot of the things that we're going to be discussing today are going to be Switch games.
Yes.
The Switch is less powerful than other hardware on the market at the minute, and it's interesting to see kind of what have been done artistically with video games over the last year, especially on the Switch, to allow them to look great, but also be able to be playable on that hardware.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is kind of one of my favourite things that, I mean, this is sort of something that they've kind of made their niche ever since the Wii, where, that was a console that was built on, well, it was GameCube hardware, but just due to the strength of either their confidence in regards to that, they knew how to make good-looking games at the end of that generation, and that was just able to carry completely through into, into the Wii era, and even in the Wii U era where they were kind of struggling to keep up with the, by that time everyone had made the move over to HD apart from them, and you can definitely see that there was a bit of catch up that they were doing, but I believe now, in this in the Switch era, that they've totally picked it up, which I think is fantastic, really.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, going back to Overwatch is incredibly fun.
Yes, absolutely.
I have no idea how 90% of the characters play, but I can pick Junkrat and throw bombs at people and completely enjoy that.
That's something that, like, other shooters, like mainstream shooters, really struggle with, to capture an audience that doesn't really like aiming down sights and doesn't really like going for like the most efficient and like high pace game. Like they're like you guys both don't really play multiplayer games.
No.
And you both, to an extent, enjoy Overwatch. And
Yeah.
that's really like that's an achievement in itself.
Absolutely.
Like, I haven't really seen that. Maybe Splatoon has done something similar, but otherwise, not so much.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Splatoon because Splatoon, both 1 and 2, also kind of fit the role of there are options in those games, both the Splatoon series and Overwatch, for people who, aren't good at Twitch shooting. This is why I've never been a massive FPS fan, is because I'm not good at Twitch shooting. The quick reaction times and, other games, particularly things like games made by Platinum and things like that, fast-paced games, I can handle those.
Yeah.
When it comes to shooters and the kind of level of dexterity needed to be good at shooters and the kind of the entry level of ability you need to get into them has been kind of very difficult for me to get into, so I've never got into it. But both Splatoon and Overwatch give you options to mitigate that. They give you options, characters you can play or loadouts you can play in Splatoon, where you don't need to rely on that. You can rely on, other methods, and maybe you lose some. Like, for example, if you play as Junkrat in Overwatch, not going to kill somebody across the map, but it gives you the option to play the game in a way that you're comfortable with. And, I think that's something that both of those series need to be credited for. I think.
Absolutely.
Because, I can't remember, James, if you mentioned this in your video, but to completely out you at the moment, me and James so far have both been playing Overwatch on PC with controllers.
Yes, so this was something that I was going to partially mention in regards to, so obviously the video about Overwatch did go out earlier in the year, and since then I have returned to it a couple of times, and I'm definitely, there are characters that feel like they're better suited, well, not so much better suited, but they feel playable on a controller, for lack of a better term, versus there's a decent even mix between characters that require high precision, so a keyboard and a mouse, versus ones that you can almost get away with not being able to aim correctly. Like, they'll do a lot of splashy damage, which Junkrat is the perfect example of such a character. Then you have melee characters like Reinhardt, who again, due to how they're controlled, you don't really have to worry too much about aiming.
There's not much advantage from using a keyboard and mouse with those characters.
No,
to the precision ones. So
no, absolutely.
I do want to make something very clear here. James uses a controller through choice. I use a controller because I lost my mouse in a house move. I still have not yet bought a replacement. Just wanted to make sure that that people were made aware of that.
I believe that came through loud and clear. I will be sure.
Yeah, James. God.
So
James.
One of the resolutions for 2018, I suppose, will probably be playing Overwatch with a mouse, but we'll see what happens with that.
It's one of those things you get used to, for sure.
Yeah.
Last year I preferred playing PC games on a controller, and then I switched over. In fact, I switched over last year, and I've been playing for about a year, mouse and keyboard. I changed my mouse, which I haven't got a gaming mouse for the first time since last year.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference. I was like, right, I get it now. Because before, Microsoft Mouse 2000 or whatever it's called, just doesn't, it's just, it sucks. So
I think it's
worth doing. It's worth you get a significant advantage.
I mean, I remember having this conversation, to kind of go off on a tangent momentarily, about with you guys about, gotta be about 2 years ago, and I recently started getting into, in small installments, getting into playing things like TF2, and things like that, and something like TF2 on PC, you have to play with a keyboard and mouse.
Absolutely,
there's not really any kind of, I'm not even sure if it's got native controller support for PC. But, it's... I remember having this conversation with you and singing the praises of keyboard and mouse for shooter-style games, but they're the only games that I play with keyboard and mouse.
Yeah. I would even go as far to say that if it's a game that's also out on console, which I know that Team Fortress 2 is, but like they're two completely different tweaked titles in that regard.
Yeah.
If it has got a console version, usually the game is tweaked in such a way to be console friendly, so controller friendly.
Yeah.
Which isn't so much. I mean, I would have said that was more the case back in the early days of the 360, but I think nowadays they are making more of a push to, gearing your PC version more towards PC players versus, having it flat across the board. But
Yeah. Overwatch.
Cool.
It's not a 2017 game.
No.
Technically, it's a 2016 game, and what I was going to say before we move further was, were there any particular games of last year that you feel like mentioning in regards to whether you liked them, and, if there was anything in particular that you know...
Going from that controller versus keyboard and mouse kind of analogy, like a perfect one for me, and the reason I got it for Xbox rather than PC was Battlefield 1.
Yes.
Which is probably one of my favorite. I put it as like one of my games of the year for this year because I picked it up in December, but it's a last year game, so it's not a game of this year.
Of course.
And like it would, like I got it for the Xbox because I wanted that auto aim with my controller, which doesn't happen on PC for some reason.
Well, I mean, your background in video
It's
games.
Xbox.
Yeah, it's Xbox and Halo, right?
I loved it. But but another reason for it is that you transition from like aircraft to shooting in Battlefield 1. And like to do that on PC, like it's much, much better to play like planes with a controller. It just is. So that's quite nice, like being able to play that on Xbox and just like, here's a controller. You don't have to switch between, like, if you join an aircraft, you don't have to pick up a controller and put down the keyboard and mouse. So that was good. But yeah, Battlefield 1 has been really, really fun. It's a game that makes stories without having any real story itself. I haven't played the campaign. I should have, but I haven't. I've just been playing the multiplayer.
So, I mean, that was one thing that I think we're probably going to mention a little bit of. That definitely feels like a trend going into games this year in regards to letting players kind of be the storyteller in regards to, emergent play and, games having the systems in order to kind of express yourself.
Yeah.
And you feel like in Battlefield 1, there's definitely something there in the multiplayer that you can do such a thing.
Like, well, you just come with, you finish a game, whether it takes half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever, and most games you finish, you come out of there with some kind of experience that feels unique to you.
Of course.
Even though you've played that map before, you've done this objective before, you've done this. Like, they create these set pieces that just feel like this is like completely unique, and it's so fun. And I've never really experienced that in any other games. Maybe some other Battlefield games. But yeah, I definitely like recommend it in terms of having those like experiences. Let's break an example out.
Go ahead.
I was if you don't know how Battlefield works, the main objective game is to take over territories in sections.
Right.
You start on the left side of the map, the enemy starts on the right side of the map. You make your way to the middle where you inevitably clash, and then the objective is to take your enemy's areas away from them.
Yeah.
So I decide to go behind enemy lines and flank one of their bases that's right next to their spawn. And I do it, but there's this little little tank there. And he's defending his point. And I'm like, right, okay. I sneak around and go to the point and I start capturing it. And this tank like wanders off. And the notice that I'm capturing it comes back. I'm like, okay, I run away. He doesn't notice I'm there. He goes away. I eventually capture it by like sneaking around. And then he's had enough and he's chasing me around this like trench, trying to find where I am.
Yeah.
And it's just me. It's me against this tank. And as I'm running around and this tank is chasing me but can't really find, it's like a cat and mouse situation, I find this anti-aircraft gun this turret. So I jump in the turret, I point it at where he is because I can hear him, and I just wait and I sit there and I'm still I'm still holding on to this point capturing, and he comes up and I'm just like bam, 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 blow up the tank. I'm just like, it's so like to go behind enemies' lines, take on a tank, win, and get that objective for our team all on my own. That's just like, this is so good. That story in itself makes those games so great.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely
like
a benefit of Battlefield.
To kind of segue like into other games, like this year, like Breath of the Wild, a lot of people had those similar kind of stories.
So
where you have like those like, I had this experience, how about you? And it's like,
so I think that was one of the big things that we were going to talk about in this conversation, so might as well just jump right into it. So Breath of the Wild. Came out, launch title for the Nintendo Switch back in March. Also came out on the Wii U. You could almost kind of call it the swan song for the Wii U, especially in regards to, some of the mechanics in it. A lot of the contextual stuff in the world feels like it fits that console, but it still works incredibly well on the Switch from a mechanical standpoint. I mean, their designs are still incredibly similar, but obviously, the big selling point of it is it's not your traditional Zelda game. This is a move towards, an open, like a pure open world experience. This is more of a focus on exploration and adventuring on the overworld. Dungeons have been kind of more dialed back in regards to their. I mean, they are still there, but in regards to their importance, they're kind of almost secondary to what you do on the open world, which is just there have been games like it. I mean, you can say that a lot of it feels similar to how the Elder Scrolls games have been for the last few iterations. Even games like Far Cry have played into how this new Zelda game has developed, but it doesn't. It feels kind of its own thing. I mean, I think one of the earliest things that I said about it and what you've just touched upon there is it almost harkens back to the original in regards to a kind of an enigmatic water cooler nature of it, where So, obviously, the reason why you're both here, in regards to this conversation is just the fact that I don't believe that all three of us had exactly the same experience playing it. We've all seen stuff and we've all done stuff.
Well, exactly, James. You played the whole game without getting a horse.
That's very true, actually, yes. Yeah, the horses are the only... they were the only letdown for me, unfortunately, but...
So you didn't get one.
Yes, absolutely.
That's funny.
But you get... Sorry.
I think, like touching upon the open world nature of... Because it's the most open Zelda game.
Absolutely.
And probably, maybe pushing it to the most open game ever.
Yeah,
maybe.
No, I definitely agree.
I think that that goes from like the previous title, Skyward Sword, being the most linear Zelda game ever.
Yes.
Like it was super, super, super linear. And then it's almost like they pushed that boundary and they thought, right, okay, we've done that. Now let's try and push the other boundary.
And it'll be interesting to see how much of the design decisions for Breath of the Wild came from the backlash about how linear Skyward Sword was. Like, I still, I played Skyward Sword. When I first played Skyward Sword, I finished the game with a sense of disappointment.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah,
for sure.
My second playthrough, knowing what I was getting into, enjoyed it a hell of a lot more.
Oh, absolutely.
It was definitely an experiment, and it's definitely it's a very, very good game. It's definitely worthy of the praise that it got. I have a habit of going into things with expectations and then getting disappointed when those things don't meet the very specific expectations that I've gone into. So it's sometimes better for for me, I sometimes do find that I enjoy a game on my second playthrough more so than my first, when I kind of have my expectations changed.
And I would say, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like, because of that, like I said, there was a big backlash against it in regards to how linear and how constrained it actually was. I still think that Skyward Sword, for me personally, has some of the best dungeon design in any Zelda game.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was incredibly linear, and it'd be interesting to see how much of the design decisions behind Breath of the Wild, were from the backlash that people had against Skyward Sword, because the number one complaint against Skyward Sword was how linear it was.
Absolutely.
And they seem to have just kind of gone the other way and gone, okay, let's go completely the opposite end of the stick, end of the stick. So,
in regards to your second playthrough of Skyward Sword and how that sort of changed your opinion of the title, I believe out of the three of us, you're the only person who has done a second run through of Breath of the Wild as well.
Well, if
not
you
on purpose, mind you. But
it depends. So far. So for context, my Switch broke recently.
Yes. R.I.P. your Switch.
R.I.P. for Switch. Moment silence.
Pouring out.
Pouring out. I haven't actually got round to playing my second playthrough of Zelda yet.
Right.
What I would say, though, is that I did attempt a second playthrough earlier in the year.
Yes.
I attempted a speedrun playthrough.
Right.
And it was purely the idea of, right, let's smash through the opening hour, which on the plateau is set. You have to do that bit before you do anything else.
Totally.
You have to. Yeah. It's like a mini introduction to the game as a whole, almost.
It is the game's tutorial for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they took the world of the game, condensed it down into one area and said, okay, this is a demo of what the game's going to be. Complete this, and then you can do the rest, and just expand upon that. But yeah, so I tried a speedrun playthrough of Breath of the Wild. Completed the intro. Grabbed a horse, went straight to the castle. 3 hearts, went around Hyrule Castle, got loads of good weapons, and then promptly got my ass handed to me.
Which bit?
So, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Before we carry on, I think we should probably mention that there are going to be pretty heavy spoilers for.
Yes. So, just as a quick
put up a
warning.
siren.
Yeah. So during this Games of the Year discussion, we will be getting quite detailed about them. Obviously, they are titles that have been out for a while. I believe that we're in a right to talk about them. But of course, if you've yet to play these titles, we would there will be timestamps in this video that you can jump to the beginning of discussions of games that you know about, or more just the kind of general thoughts. But basically, one quick thing that we'll say on regards to all these titles is that if we're talking about them, we feel that they are worth talking about in regards to their Game of the Year status. So that is the last point.
So there will be spoilers, like the one I'm about to give now.
Okay.
Basically, I don't know if you guys have, I'm pretty sure you both finished Breath of the Wild in the same way as everyone else.
That was one point that I was going to get to at some point in this discussion, but you can carry on. So.
Yeah, well, just to
finish the. I want to know about your speedrunning thing.
Okay, right. So this is the thing. It's something that I completely didn't realize until I played this speedrun. If you haven't played Breath of the Wild, or you have played Breath of the Wild, you should know that there are 4 main, outside of the shrines, 4 main dungeons, which is, I suppose, right? At the end of each of those dungeons, there is a boss character. It's meant to be a personification of a part of Ganon in the game.
Yes.
And so there's 4 of these main dungeons. I can't remember what they're called now. The beasts.
Divine Beast.
Divine Beasts. That's the one. If you don't complete a Divine Beast, when you get to the final fight against Ganon, you have to fight any of the bosses that you didn't defeat at the Divine Beasts at that final fight.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of this. So my speedrun playthrough, I was like, right, let's go kick Ganon's head in. It's fine. We'll go and we'll run through Hyrule Castle, get loads of good weapons, and we'll be able to go and fight them. Got into the boss room, realized, hang on, there's one of the blights there. I can't fight him, and then another 3, and then Ganon, and promptly got my ass handed to me about 6 or 7 times.
So you got to the blights though.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you passed all the the sentries, all the. That's good.
The Lionel Richies and
The Lionel Richies.
It's just legging it past them on a horse.
but,
Nice.
yeah, that works.
There you
So
go. Well, I completed that. This is why, for me, I wasn't as happy with Breath of the Wild as most people.
yeah,
But it's because I tried to push the boundaries of how open world is it?
yeah.
So I did 2 dungeons. Out of order, I probably would say. I don't think anyone did the sand dungeon first.
I would be surprised.
But obviously people have, but most people probably go, what was it, clockwise? Anti-clockwise.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
the
believe
map-
everybody starts with the Zora domain because it's the
Yeah.
nearest to Kakariko village, and then
Yeah,
works
it's like the
from
game
there.
kind of pushes you to go
Yeah.
that direction, but you don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
So
not,
I
it's
went-
not forced.
I went clockwise and I did the sand dungeon first,
Yeah.
which was really hard. And then I did the water one, which was really easy. And I was like, you know what, I could probably just finish the game. So I went to the castle. I was like, I wonder how hard it will be in the castle. And I just going through it, and I was like, this isn't that hard. And then I went to the boss room, and it was like, you have to fight 2 blights. Oh, these aren't that hard. I thought, no. Now fight Ganon. Oh yeah, I can fight Ganon. Yeah, I can kill Ganon. Yeah, I can kill Ganon. And then the end of the game happened, and I was like, oh, I've completed it now, and I still have
Yeah.
2 dungeons to go, and I just didn't do them.
It does.
Eventually I finished one of the other ones. I've done 3 so far. I never finished the 4th. I never did the fire dungeon.
I want to just very quickly. I mean, I am going to have to say this because obviously both of you have come from a place of you have both completed the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a sense of the word, I technically never. Well, I never finished the game because I never beat Ganon.
Yeah.
But I
got
believe
a
at this
feeling-
point I know enough about the fight and I
Yeah,
know
for
enough
sure.
about how. But in regards to completing it to my own standard, I feel like I did so much of that game that I didn't feel I had that completionist aspect to the experience. I was
Yeah.
fine with my experience with the game at that point, which I think
Yeah.
is an interesting thing in regards to moving to this less scripted open world formula where
Yeah.
you are kind of building your own adventure as you go along.
Well, that's the thing. Outside of the first, the plateau.
Yes.
Because like we discussed before, you have to do the plateau before you can move on to the rest of the world.
Yes.
Almost everything in the game is completely optional.
Yeah, which is
You know.
Which is it's great, but it's also to its own detriment.
yeah, of course.
I mean,
And
it's the same problem many open world games are going to have, is the fact that how do you pace a game that lets you do anything you want to do?
Yeah,
Of
for
course.
sure.
I think they attempted to do it in some interesting ways, in regards to difficulty at least. I mean, when it comes to the divine beasts, I think they're always at a static difficulty, as far as I'm aware. But with general overworld enemies, I
They
think
level up with you, don't they?
Yeah, I want to
Essentially,
say, do they
trying to
not
do-
level up every time you complete a divine beast?
I don't think it's the divine beast. I think it's just either time played or the amount of shrines that you've done.
Actually, no,
it's
I
on
think it's shrines, isn't it?
And it's also on fairies. If you unlock more fairies, the enemies get harder. There's a stat to it
That's
that
interesting.
someone's worked out. But yeah, it depends on which parts of the game you do. And I think it's pretty much every stat linked in.
I mean, what it boils down to is essentially the longer you play, the harder the enemies.
Yeah, for sure.
Which makes, I mean, that is how it should be. I mean, Zelda's never had a conventional leveling system in it. I don't believe they wanted to introduce this with this game, so this makes the most logical sense in regards to making it harder as it goes along.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So like going on to like why it would be one of our games of the year, maybe.
yes.
Why, like, what was the standout thing? Like, open world is all well and good, but do you think it kind of earns that crown because of that, or?
It's not the size that I think is what does it for me. It's what they do with it, which I think is a lot different to. So, I think the main thing that I like about it is that it feels like it earns its size in regards to not only what you can do as a player, but what the game kind of does on its own. So this is stuff in regards to its, systems-driven approach. We're talking, its physics system, we're talking its chemistry system, we're talking its enemy AI and stuff. Basically, the game is built to almost be a situation generator.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not so much the first game. You can look at, games have been doing this for years, Deus Ex and, games of this ilk, which are all systems generated and they're all emergent designed. But I don't think I've ever seen a game which has done it but applied it to this sort of open air adventure design.
Yeah, I think the thing is with Breath of the Wild, for me, the kind of two main points aren't really the things that made it, a potential game of the year for me. Because it's definitely up there. It's just that this game this year has been so good for games that I can't call it my number one.
Neither can I. But
I don't know if I can call anything my number one. It's just it's been such a good year for games. But yeah, so the two elements that I appreciated most out of Breath of the Wild, essentially what you just covered, with the fact that I haven't played a game before where, and this happened on a number of occasions, many occasions, where I thought, I wonder if I can do that, and I can, and the game allows you to do it. I remember.
Sorry, my bad.
I remember just trying so much incredulous stuff, just not expecting the game to allow me to do it, but it does. Things that combining all the different. I think it was a Game Design Expo that they were talking about it. They were talking about the chemistry engine that they decided to work on. It's such an ingenious idea, and it works so well. It's very simple elements, but the way that they work together is it's incredible.
And you end up with stuff which is kind of super cute and idiosyncratic, which you'll come out of that game and you'll remember. And this was stuff where I was thinking of when it's thundering and you have any metal armor or a metal shield on, you'll get electrocuted and you go, that makes sense because I'm in a high place and I'm wearing metal. But the thing is that you can then use that knowledge and so I threw a metal shield at an enemy, and they just got struck by lightning and that just took them out, and I was like, that's fantastic.
Cool.
It's I'm pretty sure this is the thing. I don't think I ever actually did this, but I know with impunity that this would work in game. As if it was storming and you put a metal shield on a bundle of wood,
you get
a campfire. You can tie an octoballoon to one of your bombs and then use a decal leaf to fire across the map. I'd completely bypass intended solutions to problems,
totally,
using your ingenuity, and it doesn't feel at any point that the game doesn't want you to do that.
No, if anything, the game, I feel like it encourages you to play around with it. I think that was the expectation, was that one of the interesting things I'll say about it is that so kind of as we said, it's not a real Zelda game, but it is. I think that's a bit harsh against it. It is as much a Zelda game as any other Zelda game, but your items have been, so the items that you would get in a dungeon have been pared down quite sufficiently. So you're basically down to bombs, basically a stopwatch feature which freezes stuff in place, ice columns, and also magnetism. Now, that magnetism feature I think I used there's one particular mission in particular when you're going up to the divine beast of the Goron kingdom.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of done in the style of a stealth section where you have a character with you and you can say to stop or to come or whatever. But there's basically these flying sentries which are overhead, which if you play the game regularly, I think they expect you to shoot them out with an arrow or something like that. But
when I played it, it was a case of there's always blind spots that you can.
Well, what I ended up doing was the area was covered in metal boxes, so I'd pick them up I would knock them into the enemies and basically just use it like a bulldozer to clean out this area. And I'm like,
but that's fantastic, isn't it? Like,
yeah, no,
you can approach that game, and there's always games that do this, where you have a section that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And you go, right, I just don't want to do this. You know you have to do it to complete the game. But in this game, you just go like, actually, I don't want to do it like that. Like, you didn't want to do the stealth section like a stealth section.
no,
You just
absolutely.
didn't. And it's just like, that's such a good...
I think one of the earliest examples of it is when you go to the Zora Kingdom. Oh, I think you've even got a different analogy for this, Joe. You go to the Zora Kingdom and they say, before we go to the Divine Beast, you need electricity arrows. So there's two things you can do. There's a Lionel on top of this hill who shoots electric arrows. So you can either defeat him, or if you're finding this a bit too difficult, there are electric arrows which are strewn about this hill from like previous enemies that he shot.
Yeah.
And you can just go and collect those.
Yeah.
Which I've tried fighting that Lionel a couple of times to the point that I was like, right, I'm just going to do that. And so I was just collecting what I could. But you'd already gone to the Sand Kingdom beforehand.
Yeah.
So you didn't even have to worry
You just
about
had electric arrows.
Yeah.
Well, and I needed like, you need 20, I think. I think you need a certain amount. I had like 15.
Yeah.
So I just walked up the hill. I found the arrows. Like there was a bunch of 5 on a tree or something.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, there you go, done. And I never fought that Lionel. He's still there now. I was just like, nah, I'm good.
I spent 3 hours fighting that Lionel, and it was one of the. I think the actual like fight itself, where I won, lasted about an hour, and it was one of the most intense combat experiences I've ever had in a game. I will say, no other combat experience in the game lived up to that first Lionel fight.
I would agree with that as well. And I would say, in regards to most of my combat experiences, there were very few that I dealt with as actual combat. In regards to swords and shield stuff, if I could, I would just like use any sort of distraction tactics or anything like that I could do to just kind of trip them up that they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
Like, I think in regards to the Guardians, my thing with them was I would just try and knock them over with bombs, rather than actually dealing with them directly. Which, I mean, that's one way of going about it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it goes back to the idea of in Breath of the Wild, combat is literally.
It's not the be or end all.
Yeah, it's one option. I mean, there are elements and there are situations where you have to do it. You know, like most. Not so much the open area boss fights, but most of the Divine Beast boss fights rely pretty heavily on some, at least, sword and board combat.
Of course.
The combat engine is good. It's a good combat.
Yeah, absolutely.
engine.
The combat feels as good as I mean, it's a move backwards from Skyward Sword, which obviously the point of that game was to emulate one-to-one, hand movement, do sword combat.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of returning more to sort of like a more advanced style of Twilight Princess combat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing is with Skyward Sword, the combat was fun. I never had any issues with motion controls in that, but it felt like each combat encounter was a small little puzzle rather than being a combat encounter.
Totally.
And in Breath of the Wild, combat encounters feel like combat encounters. When you get to a camp and you realize that there's, a silver enemy there and you don't think you can handle one, you can do so many things to try and take them out from afar, there's so many things you can try and do.
And it's as we said, you never at any point feel like the designer's over your shoulder going, no, they don't restrict you from doing anything. It is all very much there and very much encouraged. And
it's surprising considering that at its core, there's not a huge amount of kind of customizability in how you play. Like, moment to moment. Like, you don't... I mean, if we compare it to another game that kind of... Think of Fallout, right?
Yeah, of course.
In Fallout, you start the game and you can build your character differently. You'll always have a different character. You can put all of your points into strength. and play as a complete dumbass, or you can, play as someone who has no combat ability at all, but can talk his way out of trouble. Great, right?
Totally.
Breath of the Wild doesn't have any of that, but it doesn't need it.
No, absolutely not. I think its expression is in what you do rather than who you are.
Yeah.
Which,
And it allows you to change playstyles on the fly, which
Yeah, totally.
is something that can really be done in these other games,
I mean, it's one thing that I think Nintendo's very good at in regards to you never feel like it's in, like when you come into the game that they lay everything they give you the simplest inputs going.
Yeah.
I mean, not so much Zelda, but another game that we're going to talk about, Super Mario Odyssey, but both of them are very similar.
Yeah.
Odyssey only has 3 buttons: jump, attack, and crouch. The crouch modifier also affects different stuff as well, but basically there's only 3 buttons that you have to worry about.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild's similar in regards to you have your combat buttons. You have a jump button, you have a grab... Well, I believe jumping and climbing are the same button, or I might be incorrect on that.
I think it's just automatic. Like,
Yeah,
whatever,
I think it's automatic
if you jump
as well.
on a tree, it'll grab the tree.
Yeah. You have a interact button, but like basically it's the barest essentials. You don't really need anything more than that.
Yeah.
Which
Definitely.
for a game of this type, it's it boggles. You think of its nearest compared to Skyrim, where you have a button for your bow and arrow, you have a button for throwing magic, you have a button for combat, you have it's a very different way of thinking about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much that the systems in something like Skyrim are in your face and very overt and very menu based, whereas the systems in Breath of the Wild exist underneath the dressing.
Absolutely.
It's a simple fact of the matter of if you want to cook in one of these other games, you go through a menu, you find all the items you need to cook, you press the cook button. In Breath of the Wild, it's all in-game mechanics.
Yeah.
There's nothing overtly... I mean, as you said yourself, to go through menus, and still menus there, but pick up, a lamb shank and a mushroom and chuck it in a pot,
And you get mushroom lamb steak. But the thing I quite like about it is that, like, because I think we've talked about quite a lot of different things that you can do in game and just how much scope there is to it.
Yeah.
But I never there are things that I don't know about in this game. There are things that I may never see in a playthrough. There may be things that I'm the only person who has ever seen it in a playthrough.
Yeah.
But I never felt at any point that the game was being too enigmatic. And I would throw this point maybe at the original Legend of Zelda in regards to... I still believe that this is a game that, like, is made to be played with a, with a map or with a strategy guide.
Yeah.
Which, might not be the case at all, but, that's just kind of how I felt playing it. But in this, if you go and you talk to NPCs or you just observe stuff, you just start to pick stuff up.
Yeah, I think what might be interesting to mention in regards to... Because I know a lot of people referring, Breath of the Wild as a return to form of the original Zelda.
Yes.
Each of us, we missed that generation. We were all...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We've never... So, we didn't grow up in the
started
NES. Sorry, Joe.
Well, sorry, I started on the Link to the Past. Like, that was my first Zelda game.
My first Zelda game is Ocarina of Time.
Mine's also Ocarina. I had a Super Nintendo, but my first Zelda game was Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
So we missed that whole kind of... And I think what it seems to be from reading online with the original Zelda was... There's, maybe a potential of if we can sell guides
copies
like
of
this.
Nintendo
But I think,
Power.
But I think what it was more so was that you spoke to your friends in the playground and went, I figured out how to get into level 3. How'd you do that,
which is what I think this game nails in regards to the water cooler feature of, have you done this? Have you tried that? I mean, the nearest thing I could compare it to is the soapstone signs in Dark Souls. But, like, rather than having a system in place in the game like this, it's something that's... Well, I mean, as much as Nintendo come across as quite an old-fashioned company, they're incredibly forward-thinking in regards to some of the mechanics, and I think they know in regards to, Twitter and and social media, where you can package content and you can package how information is spread. This is a game that's perfect for it. I mean, I think in the first few weeks of when this game came out, my Twitter feed was just was just full of people being like, so I found this giant horse, or so I built this seesaw out of contents within the game. And it is a game that is packaged for storytelling, which was something we've already talked about it with Battlefield 1. I'm sure there's a couple of other games that we'll mention this with later in this talk, but it's
definitely
one, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that seems to be the whole design emphasis behind it. But like again, just to bring up another point, the other reason why this is definitely a contender of Game of the Year for me, you've been seeing a lot, kind of through the lifespan of the video game industry, Paul, definitely more so over the last decade or so, game designers wanting you to see the entirety of their game.
Yes.
So kind of railroading you through, maybe just the main story, maybe there's optional elements there, but they're like, pushing you through the main story to get you to the end so that everybody who buys the game is able to complete it and all that kind of stuff.
And we would say Nintendo's probably not an offender of this, but that was definitely during the Wii era and during the 3DS and DS era. They were, I mean, you can look at Super Mario 3D Land or Super Mario Galaxy, where the beginning half of basically the game up until the credits is designed that everyone can play it and everybody can get to the end. What happens afterwards is, they can maybe ramp up the challenge, but they're games which are accessible for people to play from the beginning to the end. Yeah. And from what you've said about Skyward Sword, which unfortunately at the time of this recording, I haven't actually played it myself, but I will be meaning to in the future. It sounds like that has a similar issue.
Yeah, it pushes you from beginning to end with no kind of time for you to stop. But with Breath of the Wild, there's such a wealth of content in the game that they've... I remember people being like... the perfect example is the Koroks, right?
Yeah.
There's 900 Koroks to find in this game.
Yes.
I remember people, like, when it came out, people being like, what the hell, Nintendo? This is just padding. And it's like, no, you're missing the point. Nintendo don't expect you to find them all.
No,
that's the whole thing. They've taken the idea of it doesn't matter if half of 75% of our player base, probably even more than that, never fully finish this game.
Totally.
It's a nice risk to be able to go out, and that ties back into the open world side of things. It's open world in its purest essence,
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I like about when I was, when we all grew up. But what I really liked about Mario 64 is that you didn't need 120 stars to finish the game like you did. You didn't collect them all because some of them were just too hard.
Yeah.
And that was the point. You just got as many as you could. You got to the next stage of the game, got as many as you could, got to the next stage of the game. And I kind of miss that in the more linear games where you have to do the whole section of that game. And because you have to do the whole section of that game, there's some of those bits that are almost too easy.
Yeah.
It was nice. It's a nice addition.
It is definitely a different way of doing stuff. But before we move on to other games, there is one small aspect of it that I do want to talk about, which is, I think we've been saying quite a lot of how it's very different to other Zelda games, but there is a lot of stuff in it that is very similar to other Zelda games. And I would say that there's two things in particular, which is one that I particularly like and one that I'm not a massive fan of, that this game does with the Zelda formula going forward. So one of the things that I did appreciate was, obviously the game is built for finding your own adventure and, kind of bumping into the little bits of story and the little bits of side quests that the game presents for you.
Yeah.
But I quite liked a lot of how the main mission stuff or the main tasks were balanced as well.
Yeah.
I think one part in particular which I quite like, which felt like it could have been in a previous Zelda game, was the thieves' hideout in the Gerudo Valley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where just it for that small section of the game, it suddenly turns into a stealth section, one where they use the game's open world design and the systems driven stuff, but in more of a structured way that you would get in a previous Zelda game. So, for some weird reason, all these thieves are addicted to bananas, and so you're throwing them down, and you're using that to sneak past them. But then when you get into another room, you can climb onto the walls, and you can go completely through it and not engage with a single one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like that to me, like, thinking of how Zelda games might look in the future, if they decide, this was a really interesting experiment to do, but in regards to how much it costs to produce, it's just unobtainable to do a game which is the same size or bigger than Breath of the Wild again for a long time.
Yeah.
So if they maybe go back to the structure of a previous, the classic Link to the Past, where dungeons and overworld are like a 50-50 split, but they still had these elements of systems-driven and chemistry-driven stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you could definitely see how that could be applied to that.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
It's going to be really interesting to see how the new DLC
Yes.
kind of turns things, because it's been, from the start, it's been declared as an extra dungeon and more story content, right? I would argue that in regards to dungeons in Breath of the Wild, it doesn't have any.
So that was the second point that was my negative point that I wanted to bring up. So, and I mean, it's only a negative in the stretch of, it does say The Legend of Zelda on the box. It is a Legend of Zelda game. It is very different to other Legend of Zelda games, and what it does different is what's fantastic about it. But I'm definitely a dungeon person. Like, my favourite bits of Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess are the dungeons. I mean, you have the overworld where it is like, this is, Breath of the Wild is the perfect overworld, because it is like a living, breathing world of side quests and towns and people that you can engage with.
Yeah.
But the dungeons have always been purely mechanical exercises, which they are giant puzzle boxes that you solve room by room.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
an interesting one, because if this didn't have The Legend of Zelda written on the box, I probably wouldn't have disappointments in this manner. And they're small disappointments, they're...
Absolutely.
Because...
There's always that expectation, isn't there? You always have a borderline for a Zelda game. It's like, this is a Zelda game. I expect this. I want items, maybe.
Yeah.
I want dungeons, and I want an open world with, like, characters and story to it.
Yeah. And obviously, not to play like armchair manager or armchair game designer or anything, but like after playing the game, you kind of go, well, you could see how they would be able to reinterpret like previous items for this overworld. Well, I mean, the bow and arrow comes back anyways, but that's because you do bow and arrow stuff. Yeah. And again, like, you have the tablet, you have the magic tablet that can do 4 different... I mean, they bring bombs back, but rather than being that was an interesting thing, that despite it being an open world survival game with resources, bombs aren't a resource, they're infinite. It's on a cooldown timer, which I think on the one hand makes them more useful for puzzle solving and stuff, but on the other hand maybe robs them of any sort of...
They didn't feel powerful at all.
Absolutely not.
Using in combat, really.
Yeah, they didn't feel like a combat option, which is an interesting one. Even after they get powered up, it doesn't feel like a combat option. But I think I used them once to fight a mini guardian or something, run out of weapons. But
you think of old items like the hook shot, and you go, oh, you could have used that for rock climbing and stuff. It could be like when you climb a ladder and it doesn't use stamina. Well, you could use the hook shot for the same thing. But then I think for this game, if you had started adding stuff like that, it just wouldn't have been the right thing to do.
I think the chemistry engine replaces it.
Yes, absolutely.
I think there's always ways, like, for example, as an alternative to using the hook shot to scale up a mountain, you can set a fire, jump on top with paraglider, and use the warm drafts to fly upwards.
To fly up it. Yep. Oh, you could build a like a seesaw and drop a rock on it and just fly up.
Yeah, there's this. I think that one of my big things about going into it was I was worried that there wasn't going to be items in the traditional sense, and I don't think that. I was surprised to find myself not being
I didn't miss them that much.
Yeah.
No, neither did I. And I feel like the quote-unquote treasure items that were in this felt like they fit the world because they were more physics-driven. Like, I think the stopwatch one is the perfect example of such, where assuming that you're still listening to this, but even though we've warned you about spoilers, but you don't particularly care about spoilers, but you haven't played the game, there is a stopwatch item in the game that freezes stuff in place. Basically, it almost... I want to say it's like the gravity gun, but that's not exactly what I mean. Basically, it just freezes stuff in place, and then you can apply force to it. When the stopwatch item... Well, when that effect goes, all the force that has been applied to it will then cause it to fly off in a certain direction. And that just feels such a... Like, I've never seen that kind of thing applied in a game.
No.
But it works here.
It's like it's almost feels like when Nintendo make games, in some ways they're behind, in some ways they're ahead. It almost feels like Nintendo have never made a game with a physics engine. I'm sure they have.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
But what it feels like is that they've gone, right, let's make a game with a physics engine.
It's like they saw Half-Life 2 like a year ago.
Yeah.
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 Well,
they're
even
like,
I
"Oh,
would
yeah, we could
say
do that."
it's almost a little bit like how Half-Life 2 had the physics engine, and they went, oh, wow, look at all the cool stuff that we could do with it. The only two things that they ever did with it were seesaw puzzles and the gravity gun.
Yeah, for sure.
Nintendo,
But then
you give them you give them a physics engine, and like they have a game jam of all the different ideas that they can come up with it.
Yeah.
The R&D time of Breath of
Yeah.
the Wild must have been so huge with stuff like that.
Well, I mean, a lot of people have been saying it was like, because Skyward Sword came out in 2013 or 2012,
Yeah.
so it must have been in development since then.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's one interesting point that I think we're getting to a point now where possibly we've been on the topic of one game for a little too long, but I think we've pretty much covered everything about.
yeah, so in regards to the dungeons, I think that they're not as good as the previous ones. I mean, they're fine for the game. I
The
mean,
shrines don't feel like a full replacement, but again, it's talking about in context of replacement rather than good game.
And I mean, and you know, you can complain that they're all the same art asset and all that sort of stuff. And I mean, you can look at the game and you can see that the open world budget of it, you can see where they've recycled content and reused stuff. I mean, there is only a couple of enemy types, there is only a couple of
Boss types.
shrine stuff, but when you play the game, it never feels like it's repeating content.
No. The only thing I feel like it was repeating content with was bosses.
Yes, I would agree with that as well, and I would say that just purely from a mechanical standpoint, they feel very similar in how you engage with them.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at this point, after playing Breath of the Wild, it's definitely high up on my list of Zelda games.
Totally.
And I think it's completely changed my perception of what I'd want from an ideal Zelda and what I'd want from an ideal Zelda. So I want Breath of the Wild, but it's like maybe...
I want the Majora's Mask of Breath of the Wild.
Like,
I
that
want them
will
to
be
do what they
because
did
I
with
mean, I
Ocarina of
think
Time to Majora's
people
Mask
are
with Breath.
because this game took so long to build and so long to make. The expectation would be they would bring these systems. They would basically reuse what they have to remake to make another game in it.
Yeah, I want Breath of the Wild with 75 shrines and 6 massive dungeons. That's what I want, you know?
I would even go as far as say I would have one without any shrines and maybe 8 very good dungeons.
Shame. I
Yeah.
think we're on the page. Same
Yeah,
page.
I do like
And it's-
shrines, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, in regards to what we were saying about, you know, you can solve stuff in different ways. The shrines are the perfect example of that. There's one where I think they expect you to shoot a arrow through a thing of fire, but you don't have to. You could use fire arrows, or you could use the magnetism to do other stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's great, you know?
Yeah. Shall we move on?
So,
I
Breath
think
of the
so,
Wild
so yes.
is not the game of the year for any of us.
Like I said, I don't think I can define it down to one. It's definitely I've got 3 Game of the Years this year, and I can't choose between them. So
No. Hey,
Potentially could be one though for me. I think it probably is. Would be Mario Odyssey.
Mario Odyssey might be my game of the year.
It's definitely up there with my other two.
And it's kind of not scary, but it's I am cautious in saying it because games tend to have a honeymoon period.
Yeah.
And for me, Breath of the Wild definitely had that. Like, I loved it as
I
soon
would.
as I was playing it.
I think my thing with Breath of the Wild went from being loved
10
it, not a fan of it. Actually, it's pretty good. Like it
Yeah,
was just kind of
sure.
like it was like an inverse bell curve, nearly.
Yeah.
And I think I'm at the stage now with Odyssey where I'm at the stage, like, it was 10 out of 10, maybe now it's 9 out of 10.
Oh my god.
I know, but I still think it's my favorite game of the year.
Right, boys. Should we talk about Super Mario Odyssey then?
Yeah, spoiler warning.
Okay. So I mean, it is interesting that you have mentioned the honeymoon period because, like, it's gotten to the point now that it's come towards the. I mean, it's been out for a month now, and I am starting to see the think pieces on Twitter, and I'm starting to see a lot of opinion that has moved to. It is very good, but it's not Super Mario Galaxy 2 good. I've even seen. As hard to believe as it is, I have seen somebody say that it's not as good as Super Mario 64.
That's just
That's big nostalgia, isn't it?
that's
Yeah,
that's at its finest. You know?
So, I mean, let's tackle those. Well, we will talk about the game in full. If anything, we can use those two as a hopping off point. But let's tackle those two one by one. In fact, let's do the second one first. Unequivocal, well, we might as well say it. So, what's our first Mario games?
All Stars,
Really?
Super Mario All Stars, yeah.
Oh.
Which is why I always thought the underground theme was in 4/4. Because the remix for All Stars, it's in 4/4. Yeah.
There you go.
What about you?
So my first Super Mario game is Super Mario 64. Like, that was the one that got my beak wet. Like, I have played that game more times than I can count. I have played the DS one more than I can count. I will more than happily play that DS game with digital controls. Like, that's how much I like it. Like, it is. I mean, I've done videos about it. I can talk to the cows come home about how, despite the fact that it looks like a tech demo, it is one of the most kind of. I mean, you've already touched upon it, Joe, where it's just kind of like there's never the thing in the game that they expect you to do stuff, but it's there if you want to do it. But that
There's an opportunity for failure.
Yes.
And I love that. I love it.
And it's a weird thing to say, but to me that control scheme is like, it's almost like it's like a paintbrush. It's like a tool. Like, it is a problem solver. You know, you don't. There is jumps and there is kicks and there is dives, but you can use them in all sorts of different ways, and they all interact differently with different bits. You know, the wall kick is like the ultimate in regards to, it's totally unrealistic, but it just opens up so much more of the world. It's fantastic. But there's nothing about that game that holds up over Odyssey. Odyssey is a enormous improvement over 64.
Well, Odyssey is 64, but you got 20 years down the line, you know? I mean,
You could argue it's 64 too, but you could also argue that it's Galaxy 3. You could also argue that it's
Sunshine 2.
Sunshine 2, and you could even argue it's Super Mario 3D, like,
Universe.
Galaxy? Yeah.
Game of 2017, Super Mario Galaxy 3D World Odyssey.
Super Mario Galaxy
64.
3 D.
Universe.
Yeah. So, I mean, in regards to the Galaxy complaint, which is, I think a lot of people are saying that because they were more linear and they were tighter, they had more imagination to them and they were doing more stuff with them.
Yeah.
I don't, because that makes it out like Odyssey isn't imaginative and it isn't creative, which couldn't be further from the truth. Like,
So here's the thing.
yes.
Earlier you said that you thought I played through Breath of the Wild twice due to the RIP moment of silence death of my Switch.
Pull one out. Yeah.
Pour one out for the homies. Pour one out for the Switch. I didn't, but I did play Odyssey through twice.
Right.
to. I think when I played it first, because my Switch died about a week after Odyssey came out. I played a lot of it in a week. I got to about 480 moons. I was very close to getting the big 500.
Big 500.
And then it died. I lost all my saves, so I had to play through it again. And now I'm on 700, or maybe not that much.
Yeah.
600 something, between 6 and 700. And I personally, when I was first playing through it, loved the game, adored the game, fantastic game, but I was feeling that kind of there's not as much variation as with Galaxy. But I then realized, especially when I was looking in the nooks and crannies for everything on my second playthrough, there really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose we should kind of cover the core ideas behind Odyssey, in case anyone hasn't played it.
Why not?
Sure.
I mean, it's a return to the open world style of Mario games as seen in 64 and Sunshine, which is an interesting one to say, actually, considering out of the multitude of Mario games, only 2 of them have been truly open world in that way.
And it's definitely interesting. I mean, we have, to viewers at home who may not be privy to these kind of conversations, we did have quite a big chat about this the other week in regards to how since Sunshine it felt like Nintendo kind of not pumped the brakes, but like they needed to figure out themselves what Super Mario's identity was in 3D.
Yeah, well, I'd say since Galaxy.
Yeah, I would say so. But even after Galaxy 2, there was the thing that they felt like they needed to go back further. They needed to kind of distill what 3D Mario was more in order to figure out what it had to be. But with Odyssey, it feels like they have the confidence to make an open world game again. I mean, that's what I said in regards to it's like Super Mario 3D Galaxy, because it's like they figured out what they wanted to do with 3D World in regards to they wanted, they hit the peak with that. And so in the style of, well, where do you go with a game? It went open world.
Yeah. And the thing is with Odyssey, like I said, it is open world.
Yes.
But let's talk about the wonders of hat doors, shall we?
Why not? Well, this is interesting anyways, because as we were saying about Breath of the Wild with the open world and with the shrines, it felt like that was, that's their way of doing the classic Zelda, the mix of overworld and dungeons.
Yeah.
But we've never really had anything in a Super Mario game where you have a choice between the open world and the linear levels. Yet in Odyssey, here we are.
Yeah.
They kind of did them in Sunshine, but they were the they were the 6th of that. So like the same with 64. You have 6 stars, you have 6 shrines.
Yeah.
They were the 1 out of 6. The way you went, like you didn't go into the world. You went and you played this bubble of a world. So it's like almost expanded on that and made them much more like wonder friendly. Like you just go, I'll give it a go, and you play that hat door, and then you come out.
I mean, it's essentially, if someone doesn't know what a hat door is, it's within the open world levels of Mario Odyssey. There's, and it's not necessarily always doors, but most of the time it's a door with a hat on it. You throw Cappy at it, opens the door, you run in, and it's a micro level.
Yes.
Usually with one challenge in it. So I wouldn't. They're not as big as say a level in Galaxy or 3D World.
Land. Right.
Yeah, 3D Land or 3D World. But they're usually one challenge, and 99% of the time there's an optional challenge in there as well.
Yeah, there's like 2 moons in everyone, maybe.
It's not quite everyone. It's the vast majority, not quite every single one.
And you also have it in regards to, I don't know. Should I mention what happens at the end of the game?
In regards to
in regards to, there is a point at the end of the game where you can unlock more moons.
Right. Yeah.
And it adds more moons to these previous excursions sometimes.
Well, yeah. I mean, it adds to. It's quite rare for them to do that, but it adds extra pipes and stuff too.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
like I
You're
said, we can't discuss games in the Game of Year context without discussing the entirety of the games.
of course not. No.
But I mean, the main thing for me is you've got the massive open worlds, but then you've got these hat doors, which to me they feel like maybe a sixth or a fifth of a Galaxy 2 level.
Yeah.
Just in this little section, if you put 5 or 6 of them together, it would be a Galaxy 2 level, and there's so many of them. And that just kind of scratches that itch for me, but it's not something I really picked up on initially, and then I realised after doing more adventuring through the game, you've got this kind of this element to it.
I mean, it's
best
my
of
only
both
argument
worlds.
against...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Joe. What were you saying?
It's okay. It's the best of both worlds, is all I was saying.
Yeah, and again, like, this is, like, it's super interesting because obviously Breath of the Wild has done this, but now we're seeing a Mario game that's kind of done a same thing, which is if you like open world games, that is the main bulk of the game. But if you feel like you're left out in the cold with the smart, linear designed levels with, a certain mechanical gimmick or a certain something to it, we have those too.
Yeah.
And it's super cool because, like, some of them, depending on... Because hat doors will usually follow a trend of... It'll be a little... it'll be a room and it might be a linear obstacle course, or it might be a 5-moon token challenge or something. But then, say, if you take a beanstalk up to the sky, that's like... that's like in Super Mario Bros. 3 where you had the auto-scrolling levels. It's done sort of in the same way as that. Or... certain levels kind of, certain excursions have their own take on the formula, which is... And again, like, I think a lot, what a lot of people like about 3D Land and like about Galaxy 2 is, I think a lot of it is down to its lead level designer, Kiichi Hayashida, who, that's the guy that you talk about in regards to, he kind of has the 4-stage examples of like how to do a level where you introduce something in a safe environment and then you make it more complex. But this has that written all over it. But they're like little bite-sized voulevants.
Yeah.
But spread across this open world excursion.
Yeah, and it's I think the perfect way of merging the two design ideologies.
Yeah.
For me, I know I've mentioned before, but for me, Odyssey feels like everything Nintendo have ever made has led up to this.
Not just every Mario game,
sure.
but like every game.
Linking it in with Zelda, what you were saying about Breath of the Wild, like one of the reasons it's so great is because you can approach challenges in different ways.
Yeah.
So like you can kill an enemy like standard, go up to him with a sword, kill him, or you can like use the environment to do something cool and go around whatever. In this game, like even though you have those 3 buttons, the jump, the throw in the hat, and the modifier crouch thing, you can do some crazy movesets. That's like the best moveset of any Mario game.
Yeah, it's the best Mario's ever felt.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you
100% agree with you.
You can use those to solve problems in completely different ways. Like one of the water level, the water world, I don't know the name of it. You have to, when you initially start on that, there's this big wall that blocks you out of the main bit.
Yeah.
And you have to go through this door and you have to swim underground and defeat these things, and then you come out of the main bit. Or you can do a triple jump, wall kick, throw hat, jump on hat, bounce off hat onto the wall. And just bypass it. And it's just like, that's right. So good. Like, and they knew that going in. They knew that you could bypass all that stuff if you wanted to.
I mean, you just look at where they hide all the massive coin stashes. They're in places.
See, that is like my favourite thing about that game. Like, there's that bit in the Sand Kingdom where you go underground before you fight the Stone Head.
Yeah.
And there's a bit where you need to get across a chasm with moving columns, but you use a bullet bill.
Yeah.
But you look behind you and you look up, and there's just like these massive piles of coins, and it's like, so I can get up there, can't I? Like,
well, this is the thing. Like, I remember, I'm sure I mentioned this to you before. After going back to Sand Kingdom, dropping back in the hole, so you go back to where you fight the boss. I didn't realize where I was, and I went back through that room with the moving pillars.
That's right.
And completely didn't recognize it because I was looking at it from backwards. And the whole section you meant to dodge pillars with the bullet bills was like...
Yeah.
I'm gonna. This looks like a really difficult platforming challenge, and I didn't realize that I manually jumped across all of those moving pillars, got to the other side before I realized where I actually was. And the great thing about this game is that it put me into the mindset of this is something that is genuinely possible.
Oh, totally, absolutely.
And
It took
and
me
they
about
don't-
50 attempts, but I did it.
Yeah, and they don't shy away from it in every single.
Oh no, they
other
do
Nintendo
treat you
game.
for it. Like, obviously, they never
put
put a
a
moon
more-
up there because moons are got to be more easily accessible. But the fact that they put like a big thing of coins up there, it's just like a big old wink to you. Like, yeah, we expected people to be able to do this. So well done for doing that. Like,
Yeah.
Good.
it's
But
it is like the. Like again, it is hard to say, like. I know it is early days, and I know it has only been out for a month, but it is like, it just feels like the best that Mario. Like this is what Mario games feel like they've been building up to,
For sure.
in regards to, how they.
I think like if like you say about the whole armchair developer thing.
Yeah.
Like my gripes with it would be that it needs to feel like the whole time I was playing, I loved the game when I was playing it, loved it all the way through. But I knew at the back of my head that like in 10 moons in like the next level, the game is over. And like and that creeping aspect of it, like always is in the back of your mind, and it almost makes you not enjoy the game because you're thinking about it.
No, that's fair enough.
However, that being said, when you do complete the game, you have all this stuff you can go back to, and you can really methodically work your way through it. You can get all the moons. You can
And,
get
like,
more
it's-
moons than that again. And that alleviates that kind of stress, I guess, of wanting to get all the stuff.
As far as I'm concerned, and I've mentioned this before, is the main story for Mario Odyssey, in my eyes, is a prologue.
Yeah, I would agree
the
with
game. You need 180 moons to complete the game,
Yeah,
something along those lines, and there's over 800 in the game. That's less than a quarter. The collectible moons.
just out of interest, just to get kind of your opinions on it. Do you feel like 800 moons is too many moons? And I mean this more in regards to.
I think there are some very, very cheap moons.
Yes.
I don't like at all. Like don't give me that moon. Like don't reward me. I prefer having the moons where those coin stashes were and making them completely unattainable unless I have. Yeah, if I cannot get them unless I'm playing like the top 20% of the game, that to me personally, that is where I would like them to be, because then that means that like by getting all the moons, I've become a very, very skillful player. You can complete the game, like you can even get to 500 without getting those hard moons. It's that optional difficulty again from 64 I was on about.
Totally.
Where I want that, like that top 20% where I'm just like, I'm never going to get those. And that's fine. And they do have them, like when you complete the game and you get to that, what's it called? Those you get to face all those bosses again, but there's a little twerk on them.
the Tower of Power, whatever it is, the dark side of the moon.
And a lot of those, I felt like I was going into them and then walking out of them because they were too hard. And those were my favorite bits where I thought, this is too hard, I'm going to come back to it later, because it makes it makes you think about how you're going to approach it when you switch off the game.
Totally.
My second playthrough of Odyssey, my first playthrough of Odyssey was very much oh shit, it's over, and then realised that there was so much more to do. My second playthrough of Odyssey, I speedrun the main game. It was only in about 4 or 5 hours, maybe a little bit longer.
Totally.
Because I knew what to do. I'd already played through it once at this point. And then after that, decided to play how I usually play an open world Mario game, which is get everything in a level before moving on to the next. And that's a fantastic way to play the game.
Oh, totally.
That is how I would recommend you play that game. Get through the
That
story.
is how I played it the first time. Was so it's interesting, like the way that the game is structured is it's not so much an open world game where you go into a level and they say, okay, do the thing. it's more like they give you a headline objective to complete, and they usually give you 3 headline objectives per level. But they also give you like a bar of power moons to fill up, so that's basically your currency for moving on to the next kingdom. And so in the first, like in the Cascade Kingdom, it's only 5, but then you get to the Sand Kingdom and you need like 20 power moons in order to move on to the next.
Yeah, and going
So
through the main story like elements when you first enter that, from the main 3 kind of headline challenges, you get probably about 2/3 of the moons you need to move on to the next one.
So you still need to explore and you still need to examine everything in order to move on.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I want to say that I blasted through it, but like I pretty much that first day that I played Super Mario Odyssey, I finished it because like I just wanted to. I wanted the entire thing, but like I didn't rush through anything. Like I took I spent hours in levels, like just fine combing them like as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
And that, as you said, it is like the best way to play that game.
Yeah.
I cannot wait if they. There's no announcements, there's no plans for it, but the DLC for Mario Odyssey has to be a must-get, whatever it is, because there's just so much to do in that game that you
even if
want
it's just more
of it.
moons or whatever, but like you got to imagine, like even if it's just like an extra level,
If it was an extra 2 levels, I'd be so happy.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
so we like. I mean, let's get Mario 64 remade in the Odyssey engine for DLC, boys.
That would be so
Well, I
good.
mean, they already partially did a bit of it, didn't they?
They could do it. They could easily do it.
I mean, like in regards to 64, I think. I mean, the reason that I mentioned the 800 moons is that, I mean, it's kind of as you said, it's that there's the moons which feel satisfying and complex in getting them, and then there's the one that there are the ones that feel cheap.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would have the argument against Odyssey that because, you know, in 64, every time you got a star, it would kick you out of the level, you would jump back in, and so, like, if you took out the distance between you and the star that you're trying to get, like, they wouldn't feel super satisfying. But, I mean, like, you look at some of 64's stars, and, you know, there's the 8 red coins in every single level. There's one where you just have to knock an enemy off a platform. There's one where you just need to get a star from behind a cage. Like the simplest moons in Odyssey are the ones that are like the main stars in 64, which is such a weird thing to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like I said, the way I played through it on my second one, it was literally a case of speed run through, get to the end, unlock the because. Like we said before, once you complete the main story,
Totally.
it unlocks more for each of the levels, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd spend so far I've 100%ed about 6 of the levels,
Totally.
maybe a few more. I can't exactly remember how many total,
That's
but
nuts, though. There's so much.
Considering how huge the levels are.
yeah. But that's what I did. I went back to Cascade Kingdom after I completed the. Sorry, no, I went back to Hatton.
Right.
Bonneton, and I was in Bonneton and going, there's 45 or however many moons. Where the hell are all these moons? And just 100% in Bonneton, and you know, it became. I think it's disingenuous to compare, and I'm not saying anyone's doing it out of the 3 of us, but I think it's what I've seen online.
Yeah.
Had kind of lower kind of marks for the game. It's disingenuous to compare the moon to the stars or the signs in 64 or Sunshine, because they're not.
Totally.
They're a middle ground between red coins and stars.
I mean, the nearest thing that I can compare them to is in 3D Land and 3D World, where you had the comet medals and the green stars, where you would basically get them for, like, you would have a linear level that you would have to complete, but if you literally just kind of go off the path a little bit and, like, it'll either be hidden in the environment or, like, it'll be gifted to you for, like, playing around with the environment, so, like, breaking open a box or, like, catching a rabbit or something like that.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that, like, those interactions have been carried over into this game.
Yeah.
For the first
There are
time,
rabbits
really.
in this. There are boxes in this that hide. I mean, replaying 3D Land, it kind of surprised me just like how many of those elements are in Odyssey, I mean, there's there's like those rocks that you kick into, and like some of them have moons in it, so you have to kick them around for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Those are like literally like one of the first things that you find in 3D land.
Yeah.
And they don't have comet medals in them, but like just like, I don't know, like I think there must be something at Nintendo where it's like, if you give people stuff to play around with, like they're more likely to really like the game.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so it's stuff like that, and stuff like the birds, and and the rabbits, and all that sort of stuff, which just kind of like gives it more character.
Yeah. It's, like I said, you mentioned the moons as being currency.
Yes.
And that's how you need to look at them.
Totally.
Their currency, once you've completed the game, the currency between going, unlocking the post-game levels, their currency towards unlocking the costumes, And a lot of people won't care about costume unlocks. I'm someone who loves cosmetics.
Totally.
I'm
on board. And again, like, one thing that Breath of the Wild does fantastically is cosmetics are a big part of that game.
Yeah. And I think this is something that it's really interesting to see Nintendo go this route in their last two flagship titles.
Splatoon. Cosmetics is a major element of that game.
Yeah.
It's all about style.
This is what I mean when I say that Odyssey is something that just feels like a pinnacle of Nintendo's game design philosophies all merged into one.
For sure.
Totally.
Going back to the like collectible element of it, like treating them as currency. Like, for some people, they wouldn't enjoy that. Like, I'm one of those people who I hated collecting coins in Mario. Like, I just never did. I hated the red coin missions. I'd always like go over them.
Yeah.
But in this game, they had those collectible ones, which were, to be honest, were enjoyable. They weren't that great, but they were enjoyable. But they also had really three types of moons. They had the multi-moon, which was the big star.
Those are your headline objective ones, which are like the classic stars or power stars.
Exactly.
In Galaxy.
And then below the multi-moon was those like banner ones that still give you a red screen, like you're saying, those objective ones.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then you had the smaller moons, and those three categories of them helped you see the game as more of a, like, if they were all those collectible coin style moons, then they would just be like, well, I don't really want to do, like, I can't keep engaged with this. But those headline moons and those multi-moons made it like, right, we're going to do this big objective, we're going to look around while we're doing this big objective. It kept something in the back of your mind that just makes the game like so nice.
The thing as well about the moons is something I spotted when I, playing through it 100%, trying to 100% it, is the ones that I struggled with most weren't the ones that had kind of, difficult challenges, like the difficult hat doors and things like that. Some of them are a nightmare, but that's not necessarily what I struggled with most on the 100% playthrough. It was the fact of things like some of them are just ridiculously well hidden in the level, and those are the ones that stump me. Those are the ones where I had to go and sell my soul to Hint Toad. And Uncle Amiibo, like, and I mean, I think the last point I need to make on the moons is that people focus, if they're rating the game down or getting frustration out of the game in any way because they feel like some of the moons are too easy to collect, they're looking at the moons wrong.
Absolutely.
They're not about, the moons are there via necessity almost. The moons are there to give you a reason to get from A to B. Like, the enjoyment of the game is getting from A to B. It's, you can go and you can walk to Metro Kingdom, and I think there's like a moon in the first park you get to, and you just got to grab around the glowing spot. It's like, oh, I got a moon.
Yeah.
But there's also moons that, after some of the most difficult platforming challenges I've played in a Mario game.
Absolutely.
There's a moon that I literally died 50 times trying to get because it was so difficult to do. Shout out to the hat door on Dark Side of the Moon, where you have to do a long jump, like a series of like 50 square platforms. But once I completed it, even though the reward was the same as the one I got from just ground pounding the floor somewhere else,
Yeah.
I felt so satisfied getting that one moon, which essentially has the same value as everything else, but it's such a satisfying feeling just to be able to complete that section. And I don't think it's fair to rate down the game because
No,
some of the
absolutely not. There's so much content to it and so much going on in the game that, like...
What don't you like about it, each of you? Because I because I think we all share the same things that we like, right?
Yeah.
Like we all like the control, like the moveset, the controls, the open world stuff, all the moons. Like I like most of the game.
Yeah.
What do you think you don't like about it? Which is hard, isn't it? Like that's why it's such a good game. It's hard to say.
it is.
I think
it
at
is
a push, for me, at a push would be I want more story. Because I love story.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it is pretty much ever since Sunshine scared them, they have never really gone back to doing, like, a more story-driven Mario game, which
I'm kind of glad for, to be honest.
Yeah, I like mechanics, so I'm always gonna... You know, if they could release a Metal Gear game, which was literally just nothing but the sneaking stuff, and I'd be fine with that, even though you would be missing totally out on the rest of the game. I suppose the only thing I would may argue is if there's one thing that Galaxy had going for it, which this game can't, just due to the design of it, is just add slightly more variety.
Yeah.
There are 12 kingdoms, and apart from maybe some... And even like some of the hat doors kind of follow the same trend of they are all kind of abstract in a giant, it's in a void coloured block sort of thing, which, Galaxy had a little bit of that as well. But like with the 12 kingdoms, I mean, they are all completely distinct to one another. Like they all have their own look and feel, and they have their own characters in them.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. I don't feel like I can play Armchair Manager and say, well, rather than having 12 really big kingdoms, why didn't they have 24 small kingdoms like Super Mario 64? But it's like,
for sure.
I definitely felt like until I realized the extent of how much the hat doors added to the game.
Yeah.
I definitely felt like there wasn't as much content as I would have first expected. But then again, like I said, realizing how much the hat doors actually added definitely changed that for me. I would have liked more. I would have liked more multi-moon challenges.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I think they're some of my favorite elements of the game because things like simple things like once you've completed the main story, there's very few boss fights, right? And I love the boss fights in Mario Odyssey. I think they're all really well designed.
Totally.
I don't even mind the fact that you fight the Raven Rabbids three times,
Yeah.
It goes to show, doesn't it, that like each of us, our own complaints, which are all pretty kind of different, but they're all of the complaints are we just want more.
Yeah.
I know it seems a little bit spoiled, but like it is.
It just goes to show how good the game is.
Yeah.
Do you know what's super interesting though? We've talked nearly for an hour about Mario Odyssey, but we haven't even mentioned the main unique selling point of Super Mario Odyssey.
The capture mechanic.
Yeah. And it's like, because I mean, it's like
it doesn't really it's awesome, and it introduces items into Mario, which is crazy. But for me, it wasn't like.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, how often did you?
defining.
Because I mean, you were saying a lot about how you could, if you did enough jumping, you could kind of skip how the game expected you to do stuff.
sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm kind of imagining in your head a lot of the stuff that they'd expect you to use a capture for, you probably didn't bother. You just kind of tried to see what you do it yourself.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about it. Like the main issue I had going into the game without seeing it, all I saw was promotional material.
Totally.
Was or like E3 plays or whatever. The main gripe I had with it is, well, what could a bit bullet bills aren't enemies anymore because I can just capture each one. So it's like,
Totally.
well, what's the difficulty of it?
Yeah.
And the difficulty is that you just don't use the bullet bills, and you just you try and do it without using them. Or if you do use the bullet bills, then they long story short, it is hard. Regardless of if you use them or not, but
Yeah.
it's that ability to go, no, I'm not doing that, I'm doing it my way.
Yeah,
And then having it, like, and just having a good time with it.
some of the capture mechanics, though, are fundamentally excellent.
So good.
Like,
Shout out Fat Bird from Bowser's Kingdom.
Pokio.
Yeah, the bird.
So like pretty much like after this game, like I was just thinking in regards to like they must have had like a game jam or something in Nintendo where they just they came up with all these different ideas. Because I mean, Pokio, like that, like how laboratories could make an entire game around that character and those mechanics.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you get enough of it in the Bowser Kingdom, and you get enough of it in the abstract hat levels when you have to use him. But there's just so, like, just that flicking mechanic is just so satisfying that you could just do so. I mean, and again, like, one of the cool things about the hat captures is that they'll build boss fights around it.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and like, you know, one of the mainline boss battles in the game with the Mecha Wiggler, that's all tank control, you know, that, it was weird. It gave me, like, kind of flashbacks to that Batman Arkham game where you're in the Batmobile, and all of that was tank battling, but, like, Nintendo did a better version of that.
To be honest, to me, it felt like Zelda dungeons. Like, it felt like, right, I've got the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
I'm using the bow and arrow throughout the dungeon. Now here's my boss. I have to use the bow and arrow. Like, except for replace bow and arrow with captured the onion.
I mean, it was one of the things that I wanted to mention in regards to about how he was saying that the linear design of a Mario game is still about in the hat worlds. But the way that they like, it isn't structured like a regular open world. Like, in fact, the way that they structure it is like my favorite thing about it, where you have the headline objective, and even though that they're open world levels, they are designed with a kind of linear sensibility to them.
I mean, the perfect example is you look at Metro Kingdom, where you the first time you go in it, it's at night. There's cars parked everywhere, blocking off a lot of the level, so you can't just run directly. I mean, the goal, when you've actually opened up the world, to get to where you need to get to the goal in that first section, you just run straight ahead for 20 seconds. In this, they've managed to build around, just by blocking off certain aspects of the level, they've managed to build around and create this really nice, and
like,
it sticks to that 4-part level design that we mentioned earlier.
Like, I think my favourite example of it is, and I think probably my favourite level in the game, is the Wooded Kingdom. You go in there the first time, and the main gimmick and the thing that it teaches you about is the long-legged... Well, I think the first time round it's the poison plants, but I think the second thing is the long-legged onion guys.
Yeah.
So you use those to solve a couple of challenges. You learn that, if you push into a platform, you can lift it like a lift, and then you can use that as a... Second time you go into that level is all about the tanks. And you learn that you can break soft soil with them. So one of the challenges is that you have to make a maze by clearing out soft soil, and then you go up and you continue doing this. And then the final boss fight is you have to use the onion guy. Yeah. And it's like...
So good.
This is just really clever, you know, especially in an open world design. It's like I've never seen anything quite like it.
It's not drag and drop. It's like, this is how you have to do this.
And that was like my worry going in, was when I hear that they were returning to 64 design, I was like I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, but like the 64 level that I really dislike is Lethal Lava Land, because it feels like
a test level.
Here's the puzzle. Here's another. Like, literally, it's just like they just keep placing it. The only bit which feels well thought out in it is the volcano in the middle, like, because that's like a little linear puzzle thing. And like that was my worry going into Odyssey, was that that's how they'll do. But no, it is like really, really tight platforming design. It's great. You know?
Do we like the Broodals?
Yeah, I like them enough.
They're okay.
They're not.
Yeah, they serve their purpose for sure.
They'd make Mario Kart characters.
Yeah, I could see them in a Mario Kart game. Well, I would run them like the Koopalings, where they're all on the same... Oh, actually, no, the Koopalings all have their own options, don't they?
How about, like, here's one for you. Next Smash game, right? You have the Broodals as a character, but they play like Pokemon Trainer from Brawl. So you can like swap them out, and then
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm sort of behind that. What if I played as the mother
yeah.
Oh yeah,
with the golden
chain
chain jump?
And then you can call them in to do different moves and stuff.
Your B-up attack would be releasing the chain chomp, which you could use to
Kieran,
get
could you
off the
imagine
edge.
in the next Smash Brothers game if they give Mario Cappy,
That would
Oh
be.
man,
and you just possess other characters and then make them walk off the side of the stage?
That would be fantastic. That would be absolutely fantastic. Hey, speaking of Mario games that have rabbits in,
Yes,
there's another Mario game that has rabbits.
that's true. Just to put a wink cap then on Super Mario Odyssey. Well, actually, a couple of things. But first end, I'm going to ask a question, which is, what was your favourite capture and why? I mean, I think I already know what mine and Kieran's is, but just in Joe's case, what was your favourite capture, Joe?
I quite liked the what
Accordion
is it?
Wiggler?
No, I hated him. Sorry.
You weren't a fan of the Accordion Wiggler?
Yeah, I did. It was a bit clunky. It was slow.
I loved Accordion Wiggler.
I just wanted to long jump over those platforms. I didn't want to wiggle.
Wiggle, 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 wiggle.
There's
Yeah.
a-
Did you never do the hat door with the Accordion Wiggler where it's basically it like one end's on a button and then your front's on a button, and it's basically you have to
No,
move
I
quickly
didn't.
through it?
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's clever. I like that. There's one in the what's the tropical island one?
Forgotten Kingdom or Cascade Kingdom.
No, it's the there's a big beach and there's a tank in the
Oh,
middle.
Seaside Kingdom.
That's the one. There's a capture in that where you play as this thing that can go around water really fast.
Oh, the
Squid
Octopus.
thing.
That's it. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
That was really
that's fun.
fun.
Yeah.
That
I
was-
mean, the boss fight with that's really fun as well.
I love the fact that that boss fight is just like, oh yeah, by the way, it's just in the middle of the level.
yeah.
I just like the fact that the boss is just constantly there. Like you don't even like the way that you like it's like it's farting around with you before you can even engage with it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, mine has to go to Fat Pokey Bird.
Yeah.
I quite like in Metro Kingdom where you go back to it the third time around and it's just the giant Mario letters, and it's like it's the easiest thing. Like it is like the easiest move in the world.
What
But
I
it's
have
just
to do.
I have
Yeah,
to change my decision. I have to change
Right.
my decision. My favorite capture in Mario Odyssey is the massive slab of meat in the Share Kingdom
Yeah.
that you control for all of like 30 seconds.
Well,
I
the
think my
Christmas
other
tree.
and they give you and it's like a giant slab of meat but with a tiny mustache and a tiny hat.
For sure.
Excellent.
Do you know what my other favourite might be, just in regards to how
It's the tree.
abstract it
It's
is
the
and how
tree.
little you
Is
use
it the
it?
tree? Is it the tree?
The tree and the cactus are close. Like the tree's my favourite because it's like all hyper realistic foliage.
Yeah.
But then there's just like this dumbass
cartoon
plastic
tree.
Christmas tree.
Looks like someone's logo.
He makes a stupid jumping noise. No, my other favourite one is in the other ocean level. I think it's not Cascade, it's whatever. And you go in there, and there's the mermaid who's crying because she's like, "My stone sculpture's broken. Who's gonna fix it?" You throw your hat onto this dumbass stone wedge, and then you like move it about in order to like get it in the right place. And it is
I
just,
found another one of those puzzles in Metro Kingdom actually.
did you really?
Yeah, you know when you where you go initially to turn the power back on down in the sewers.
Yes.
If you go down there, there's another one of those puzzles with a giant plug.
Well, that's fun.
That's fantastic.
But yeah,
Like
I think,
anything where it just becomes something really
Like
abstract.
it's not even. There's no mechanics to it. You're
we haven't
just
even
this
mentioned.
object.
I haven't even mentioned the photorealistic dinosaur.
That's
That's
true.
true.
Dash.
And the photo, we haven't even mentioned the gross Sonic 06 realistic humans in
Oh,
Magic
God,
Kingdom.
yeah.
I think the problem with this is that we could talk about Mario Odyssey for literal hours.
Forever.
It is that good.
I think we've said what we needed to say on why we.
I
liked
think
it.
so too.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've hit the nail on the head in regards to
And
And I think in the case of me,
talking about nails, did you know?
Nine Inch Nails had a.
Yeah. No,
I don't know. I think it's definitely my favorite Mario game. Like I'm not of the opinion. I don't think I'm over the. I don't think it's a honeymoon period thing. I think it is literally.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that if it had come out 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it would be everyone's favorite Mario game. But the thing is that it's dissenting opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think you can argue why other Mario games are better, really.
And I know it's harsh because, like, I feel like in order to defend it, I have to go through every previous Mario game and say how Odyssey is an improvement over it.
Yeah.
But I would say that it does its own enough unique things and enough stuff so well that.
I do miss the gravity mechanics from Galaxy, but I think that's
the only thing I wish they may have brought over in some of the abstract worlds is that they could have had like a couple of spheres to hop on.
I suppose they were there.
DLC?
And, well, there were some in some of the 2D sections where you had fun gravity.
Oh yeah, when you're on the moon. That's right.
So, anyway, we need to move on.
That's true.
Because there were 2 Mario games that came out this year where the primary antagonists were bunny rabbits.
And you use a gun.
And use a gun.
That's my favourite Mario capture, is when you turn into the hyper-realistic gun.
Right, let's talk about Mario and Rabbids.
Okay, so just a preface, Joe, you have not played Mario and Rabbids.
I am the biggest fan of Mario Rabbids.
Separately, though, not as the same.
Quiz
You
me
love
on
the Rabbids and
anything
you
you
love
would like.
Mario.
Do you like the Roomba, Joe?
Oh god, no. I've seen bits of Rabbids. I've seen I think Game Grumps played through it.
Yeah.
I saw a couple of episodes of that, so I know the like.
I mean, I can't imagine this conversation taking as long as we've taken on Zelda.
No, of course not.
No,
But interesting thing
I
is,
did not
so
play it, so.
obviously, I love XCOM. XCOM 2 is probably my favorite, like probably one of my favorite PC games of all time. It's a game that I can play every single day.
Yeah. There's Island.
Kieran,
Games.
this was your first XCOM style game, though.
I mean, the closest I've come to it before is Final Fantasy Tactics. So
Yes, no, absolutely.
but this is my first kind of real XCOM style game, and
Got it.
Can I swear on your podcast, James? Because I just want to read what you put in
Can you bleep
our.
yourself?
Can I just read out what you've put
sorry,
in
what
our-
it says on the list. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely, go ahead.
Okay,
Verbatim.
so this is verbatim. This is what James wrote about Mario and Rabbids.
Could you do all of it as well, starting with tiny bit?
Yeah, so this is what James wrote. Tiny bit about Mario and Rabbids having a big fight, bang bang guns. Das should have been shit, but it's actually great. And
So let's dig into why did that latter part? Why do you think I wrote that?
I mean, because if you told me before I played this game and before it was announced that in 2017 there would be a Super Mario and Rabbids crossover based around XCOM combat with guns, I'd have told you need to start taking your medicine again. and like,
Well, here's the thing.
We
so
saw the announcement all at the same time, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were live
Well,
commenting, like we were.
even
commenting
more
to
than
each
that,
other.
there was, I think, there were rumors that there was a Mario Rabbids game in the pipe. I've known about this title for. I mean, I like to think of myself like a pretty. I like to be in the know, and like to go on that website that we can no longer talk about due to the owner being a bit of a bad one. But so there was talk for a long time that Ubisoft were working on a title that would have Mario and the Rabbids in it.
Yeah.
And there was concept art that came out for it, and the main reaction was, this looks like the worst.
Yeah.
Why would they make such a thing? Because we know what the Rabbids are. I mean, they're characters that were invented on the Wii. They had been spun out of the Rayman series. they are, for all intents and purposes, Ubisoft's version of the Minions
Yeah.
from the Despicable Me films. They're
Yeah.
irritating.
Well, I would have to argue with that. Is that for me personally, I love both Minions and Rabbids. Continue.
Which is fine. That's no problem at all.
They make me laugh. They make me laugh.
I like the Minions from a standpoint of they are good animation, and they have a good example of very good slapstick animation. And I would say the same thing for the Rabbids, but from a purely mechanical standpoint. But that's okay, so that's not what we're talking about. So come E3, and I think there were little, and a couple of key pieces of art had come out as well, showing Mario holding a gun, and people were like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
E3 drops,
Oh,
Miyamoto comes out on stage, brandishing a gun, pointing it at the audience. They cut to the lead designer crying his eyes out because he can't believe that he is seeing this baby, his long-time baby, on stage, while Miyamoto and Igemon are pretending to shoot at each other. And you go, okay, what's this about?
The world's
They
lost
show
its
the
mind.
gameplay, and it's XCOM Enemy Unknown. And I jumped for joy because I was like, yes, please, that's really good. Because I love XCOM.
I legitimately watching that release. Watching that E3. Like I said, I haven't played XCOM, but I know about it. I know enough about it, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. I love it so much. It's Mario and Rabbids and XCOM. That is fantastic.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely fantastic. And even better than that, the game is legitimately good.
So, two XCOM games came out this year. There was an expansion for XCOM 2 called War of the Chosen, and also Mario X Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I much prefer Mario X Rabbids Kingdom Battle versus War of the Chosen by a country mile.
I just,
when they just to go back to the E3 thing, when they announced that, when they showed the trailer for it, I think we were all on like Facebook chat or whatever.
Yes,
and we were all just like commenting on it. And I remember you guys going, "Whoa, what the hell, what?" And to me, I thought they were on the same page as me by going like, "What the hell? Like, no, this shouldn't exist. No, this is stupid. What the hell is this game?" And then we talked about it later, and we were like, "Oh yeah, so what do you think about the Rabbids game?" And I was just like, "Oh my god, yeah, that's a joke. No thanks." And you two were both like, "Oh no, it's great. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get that day one." I was like, "You no."
And we both did.
And you both did, and you both loved it. So
absolutely.
I might pick it up next year maybe, but
I'd recommend it. Like I don't know, because you do like...
I like strategy games.
Yeah, I was about to say, you like strategy games, and it's turn-based strategy, and it's not...
I enjoyed Fire Emblem, which I guess has similar tactics to it. So
It's like Advance Wars.
Yeah. So
which is like
I
Fire
might pick
Emblem.
it up. I'll get it on a discount or something, but I don't think I wouldn't pay full price for it because it's just not my cup of tea.
That's absolutely fine. But like, I want to reiterate for anyone who hasn't played this game or hasn't seen reviews on this game, this is legitimately not a joke. It's a really, really good game. It's much better than it has any right to be.
So I think I can probably go into it a little bit from a system standpoint in regards to why it works really well.
Yeah.
But just from a purely contextual, aesthetical standpoint, despite the fact that it's Rabbids and Mario combined together, it's the furthest thing from obnoxious I think anyone expected with the format. In fact, it is weirdly charming in some aspects.
It's I think the big thing that bother people with the Rabbids is there's a lot of stuff that goes, let's just make them run around and scream and stuff.
Yeah. And there is plenty of that in this game.
Yeah,
mind you,
but there's a lot more kind of interesting characterization to the Rabbids than that, you know?
Yeah.
And especially in this game, I can't speak for the other games that they're in because I haven't played any of them.
No.
I've always liked the design. I've always thought they were funny, but I've never played any other games, so I don't know about any of the the frustration that comes from that. But
totally.
The Rabbit versions of like the Mario heroes, of which there are four. You've got Rabbit Peach, Rabbit Luigi, Rabbit Mario, and got Rabbit Yoshi, and they don't say any words. They don't say one word. None of the characters in the game, outwardly speak.
It's just gibberish, if anything.
Yeah. But the characterization for each of those is so strong. Like you got Rabbit Peach, who is this
sort of vacuous Kim Kardashian style selfie queen, really.
Yeah.
She's quite, she gets angst. I mean, I think there's a bit where she meets the regular Princess Peach, and she's just kind of like treating her like she's a basic bitch.
Yeah. And it's great. Rabbit Luigi is just funny and dumb, which is fine. But then you got Rabbit Mario, which is
this gross Italian stereotype where he's overly.
He's like a blue collar worker, isn't he? Like he's like a Italian New York blue collar worker.
But when you get your victory screen, he plays a mandolin.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been the Eurogamer article or something like that, but it was basically saying like, canonically, I think this is like the first Super Mario game which was made in Italian territories, because it was made by Ubisoft Milan.
Yeah.
So technically, like, this is the first Italian team that have worked with the Italian plumber, and so you have the Mario Rabbid who plays a mandolin and chews on a toothpick and eats a pizza to get his health back and stuff, and speaks in, and like his character, and like all the characterizations work in regards to their mechanics as well. So because he's this bruiser, he basically tanks and deals the most damage.
And it's I'm really a big fan of the fact that with the characterization of the rabbits, they went and they don't have the same characters as their standard Mario franchise counterparts.
Totally.
It's not. You don't have Rabbit Peach just being a goofy version of Peach.
Yeah, totally.
She's a completely different character, and the slapstick in the game is inherently funny. I mean,
totally.
Obviously, humor is subjective, right?
Yeah, totally.
But that kind of absurdism is something that I really appreciate. And like when I first met Rabbit Mario, I was just like, man, it's just so goofy, so funny. And then you've got Rabbit Yoshi, who is a dog.
Yeah,
like that's just his character.
But is handling a like a machine gun.
It's great. It's a legitimately really fun game. It's got some great just elements to it, and you've got
and like
on the soundtrack.
Mechanically, even though it's a turn-based, and I mean there have been other turn-based Mario games. I mean we've had Mario RPGs since the SNES.
Yeah.
But it felt like they did a lot to translate a lot of the main Mario mechanics into this space. And I think like the main thing, like my favorite thing about the entire game, is the team jump mechanic.
Yeah.
So if nobody's played the game, like the way that it works is that you have your battle grid, you'll have enemies who are hidden behind different bits of foliage. Basically, it's like a super simplified version of something like a XCOM Enemy Unknown, where you have 100% coverage, 50% coverage, and 0% coverage. 100% coverage, they take 0 damage. 0% coverage, they take 100% damage. 50% is basically a coin flip between whether they take damage or do not take damage. However, one of the main things that you can do in order to flank them is a team jump mechanic. And so, the running distance of all your characters, they can't get that far. But you can basically use another character as a proxy, almost, to get a character further ahead.
Yeah.
And in the case of a character like Mario, you can then train that into also attacking an enemy, which can be an incredibly powerful damage dealer, but also feels totally within the universe of how the Mario mechanics work.
Yeah. They've really, really like hit the nail on the head when it comes to merging these two worlds.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's
thumbs up.
Definitely.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like,
thumbs up.
it's just, I mean, the Switch in general has just been like such a. I mean, especially after the Wii U, like it's surprising just how much they've managed to knock it out of the park, like in its first few months.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Did any of you guys? No, you haven't. Do you, like a quick mention for one of my games of the year potentially?
Go ahead.
Kingdom New Lands. Which was released in 2015, so it doesn't count really. But it was on
But
Switch this
you've
year.
been playing the Switch version.
Yeah, and I didn't know about it before the Switch. But it's a very, very basic, but super nicely made. Like it's a pixel art game on a 2D plane, and it's a RTS game. But the mechanic is that you first of all, the idea of the game, you've got to build up a kingdom and protect your crown. You play as a king or a queen. You got to protect your crown from being taken by these enemies monsters that come every night.
Right.
And so you have to build up your kingdom, build up your walls. You go out and you give coins to everything. The whole game works on coins. The only button you ever press is to give a coin. Like you walk over to coins to collect them, you give a coin, that's it. There's no menus, there's no like stats or anything like that.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So you go up to these like camps with beggars in them, you hire the beggars, give them a coin. They come to your village. You then make bows and arrows or hammers so they can become builders, and they'll pick them up automatically. You make them by giving coins. And then you just expand. So you get your archers, and then maybe they become like night archers by like going up on platforms, and then like your archers go out and hunt and they kill rabbits. You get money. The builders.
So it's like a very simplified strategy game then.
For sure, yeah. And it's not my cup of tea, like normally, but like this game just sucks you in completely.
Yeah.
Like the other night I was playing it. I played it, went to bed at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and I like played it till 2. Just because it's so fun. It's so good. Definitely recommend it. I think it's £10 on the Switch. You can get it on iOS for £10. You can get it on Steam for £10. Yeah. And it's every bit worth £10. It's so good.
I mean, Switch has become the indie machine as well as being able to...
I mean, just in regards to this, one of the games that I've been really... Like, there's been a couple of games that I've really enjoyed playing on the Switch. I mean, Sonic Mania, I played the entire thing on the Switch, and like, I don't think I can unequivocally say that it is built for that console, but it just feels fitting for it in like such a weird way.
Yeah.
But I think one of the games that I really enjoyed playing on it, which was like, it's weird to call it an indie game because I mean it's like a first party Nintendo title, but Snipperclips. Which obviously wasn't made internally it was made by the Super Flash Brothers, which obviously they've been making titles for years, but it feels just so much like a Nintendo product in regards to the main mechanic, the look of it, the imagination behind it, and it just as a co-op experience, like it's something you're not going to get anywhere else.
It suits that tabletop mode of like I'm putting my Switch down, I'm taking
suits
out
the
2
fact
Joy-Cons, here's yours.
Having the split Joy-Cons as their own little controllers, absolutely.
And as well as that, it's a game that has very simple kind of ideas behind it.
Totally.
And the execution can be more complex. But
yeah, it is.
I'm much to my sister's displeasure, I'm trying to get my nephew into games. He's 6 years old, and I can play Snipperclips with him. He understands Snipperclips. Until you've sat down next to a 6-year-old child and listened to them giggling as loud as possible because they keep coming over to you and chopping your character to bits.
Yeah.
Then that's
great.
Brilliant. But I've also played through the whole entire co-op campaign with a friend, and it's a legitimately really good game, and I'm really happy. I'm going to be excited to check out the DLC.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's just like that is the thing. It's just like for the first year of a console, it's just kind of amazing. Like, I mean, in regards to what you were saying, like with your 6-year-old cousin, just a lot of people like. I mean, you have a. So I mean, obviously Sony, they've released, last year they did their PS4 Pro and Xbox this year. I've got the One X, where the idea behind both of them is that to kind of their life support systems for these ecosystems, where if you're new to the if you already own the console or you're looking for a new version of this console to jump in on, these are the ones to buy. But if this is like your first year playing video games or whatever, like Nintendo have just got a console which is just the perfect kind of introductory piece to getting up to speed with stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And while it hasn't maybe got something like, it hasn't got the most popular franchises in the world on it yet, I think just because of how well it's doing, it will eventually. Well, I mean, you can see it from Bethesda's just been like one of these really great third parties right out of the gate. Sure. I mean, you have a port of Doom, you have a port of Skyrim, Wolfenstein.
That Doom announcement was crazy. Like that was for me, that was the turning point for Switch. Like,
oh, totally.
Before that, it was like, okay, we're getting third-party games, but they're last gen. They've already come out. They're not super powerful, which it can be fine, completely fine. But when they announced that, like, right, we can play this generation games on this console, it's like, oh, okay. So now next year and the following years in development, we can expect games to come out on PC, Xbox, PS4, and Switch.
Yeah,
and totally. There's almost no excuse. Like, obviously, it's not as powerful, and like there won't be every game on there. But that was a huge point for it.
But the thing is now is that Nintendo almost have... I hesitate to call it an excuse because it's not so much an excuse, but Nintendo's problem for the last, 3-4 generations, even going back maybe as far as the GameCube is, so 2 or 3 generations, is they lack the power to be able to handle third-party franchises, which is why they've lost so much third-party support. And yeah, the Switch doesn't have the power that the other consoles have, but it's a goddamn portable console.
Yeah.
That is its selling point. I can't remember, I think I said this on a forum or something this week where it's like Sony and Microsoft are fighting over your living room, but Nintendo's saying you can bring the living room with you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just so, like... And, like, I mean, my hope is that, like, and I know it's a bit of a pipe dream, but, like, I know we're going to get third-party games on it, but my hope is, like, with some of the indie stuff, there are going to be games that benefit being on the Switch, like that benefit from you can play it in the house, but you can also play it on the move. And I mean, I think Zelda and Mario definitely benefit from this, especially Mario in regards to its moon system, where, if you're traveling on a train or traveling on a bus or something, well, you can just grab a moon while you're doing it, or you can take it home and you can grab like 10 at a time or something.
Yeah, like I said, I take my Switch everywhere. If I'm catching a bus somewhere, because I don't drive, so if I'm catching a bus somewhere, catching a train somewhere, I'll take my Switch and I can play a game that is home console level quality on the move. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
And that goes back to the buying point. Like if a game comes out on all 3 systems, and even if it's £10 more on Switch, which it has been like a few times around, I'm gonna get it on Switch. Because like I have that opportunity, even if it's lesser quality, I'll still get it on the Switch.
Yeah,
totally.
Okay.
The Switch. Game of the
year. The Switch is done. So the Switch has won our Game of the Year. Despite being a console.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, considering that 2 out of my games of the year are on the Switch, then and Switch exclusives, I can't really, argue against the benefit of.
Absolutely.
But I have a 3rd Game of the Year.
Okay.
Which, I can't imagine we'd be spending a lot of time on, but I do want to mention it. Which is Nier Automata.
Okay, so I have played Nier Automata, not to the extent that you have played it.
And
Joe,
I have
who
not
is
played it. I don't like games apparently, so sorry.
From what I've heard is that if it is a game that has been made by Square Enix, it's probably not going to be your fave.
That's true. I'm not a huge JRPG fan. This isn't a JRPG, is that? So that's
No,
that's
absolutely.
not an excuse. But like,
Yeah, it's not the technical enjoy.
Square Enix games aren't. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just not me. So.
No, that's fine. And obviously, Square Enix isn't just Final Fantasy. They also do make the very good Deus Ex games and Tomb Raider and the Hitmans. Well, they don't make the Hitmans anymore, but they did. Well, they were behind the Hitmans for a while, and Sleeping Dogs and Just Cause and all that sort of stuff. But this feels very much within their wheelhouse in regards to it is a sequel to the original Nier, which was a Square Enix game. It is which in itself was a spin-off to the Drakengard games, which are also Square Enix games, and they are all the babies of a certain Mr. Yoko Taro.
Yeah.
Who I'm sure Kieran can go into in more detail than I can, because I do not know so much about him. But yes, so let's have a quick talk about old Nier Automata.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm going to preface this with an interesting slight change of direction.
Oh my god.
I read a breakdown a few years back of Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yes.
Right. Like, we're not going to talk about Metal Gear on today outside of this context, but I will say Metal Gear Solid is probably up there with one of my favorite franchises.
Sure.
Metal Gear Solid 2, I read this interesting breakdown of postmodernist design conventions in video games and how that relates to Metal Gear Solid 2. The reason I bring it up is because it's the first time it was the first time I really thought about using terms like modernism and postmodernism in the area of games design.
Totally.
And I can't remember what the breakdown was called. If you can find it, please let me know, because it was a great read, but I can't remember what it was. But basically, Nier Automata, I think is a Nier all the tomatoes, as it's called in our notes. Is a really good example of kind of postmodernist game design. And you know, I like to believe I'm using that term in the correct manner. I'm probably not, but
I believe the idea of postmodernism is that it is, well, as the name suggests, it pushes away the terms of modernism. Obviously, modernism was itself a reaction to there was art, there was modernism, and then there was postmodernism. So in regards to modernism, that's, we're talking about architecture. I believe it's stuff like, well,
modernism is the use of kind of function over form. Function being the most,
I believe,
primary kind of ideology behind it. But when it comes to game design, the reason I call Nier Automata postmodernist is it kind of, it doesn't
plays with the conventions that we would expect from games.
Yeah,
in an interesting way.
I mean, just games in general. It's not so much that it flips kind of game conventions on their head. It flips gaming on its head.
Yep.
Like, it's one of those games that it doesn't have. It's a platinum game, right? So
Totally.
It has platinum gameplay.
Yes.
It's what Yoko Taro has needed to be able to.
Yeah. So obviously, Nier. I know there are a lot of people who celebrate Nier.
Yeah.
But it is not a perfect. It's far from a perfect game.
Yeah.
Some people would even they would struggle to call it a good game.
Yeah.
But that is one that's the issue with it is that it doesn't match the eccentricity or the quality of the man behind it.
Yeah.
Yet with Platinum Games on this project, which obviously Platinum I'm not saying they're in a rut, but obviously the last couple of games either have sold poorly in the regards to Bayonetta 2 or Wonderful 101, or critically they've done very poorly, such as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game or the Legend of Korra game. Yet with Nier Automata, they seem to be back in the game. Really.
Yeah, definitely.
They're back on.
I can categorically state 100%, even though I can't decide on my game of the year. Nier Automata has my favourite presentation of the year and my favourite soundtrack of the year.
That's interesting.
It's the way the game is presented. It breaks the way that you think about playing video games in a lot of ways. As a storytelling device. So your menus are a storytelling device. You know, you play as an android character, which you upgrade by equipping chips. You can, disconnect your operating system chip to end up killing yourself and getting a hidden ending. You know, the game has 26 endings. 22 of them are kind of joke endings, but it has 26 endings. It's got really good combat. I never thought it's essentially, a mashup between bullet hell and standard, platinum action style
Which,
game.
interestingly, the original Nier did something similar in regards to a lot of enemy patterns were like bullet hell, but it feels like it makes more sense here.
Yeah, and it's inherently just a really, really enjoyable game that kind of uses its mechanics and uses its gameplay to tell a really interesting narrative that tackles a lot of quite heavy subjects.
Oh no, totally.
In a weird anime style, and I think that it's the game that Yoko Tara's been wanting to make since the beginning of his career, but never had a team sufficient enough to actually do it.
Totally.
Like you look at Yoko Tara's kind of history with games.
Yeah.
And you look at Yoko Tara's history with games, and he's never really been able to make what people would class as kind of a really technically proficient game, but he's always had these incredibly creative narratives.
They've always kind of punched above their weight in regards to like charm and craftsmanship in regards to the writing. They're always more they are like, when people say interesting, as in, I didn't quite get it, or it was technically wasn't very good, but I was engaged with it.
Yeah,
that's what you could say with this.
He makes games that the narrative drags you kicking and screaming through the bad gameplay.
Totally.
And Nier Automata is a game where he's managed to get a team behind that will make a legitimately fun game on top of these really interesting narrative ideas that he has. I mean, you look at the early Drakengard games, and a large part of the narrative in those is the fact that you're playing, a high violence action game, and it's the reason that your character's okay with doing it is because he's just a violent sociopath.
It is basically coming up with an excuse for why the character is doing what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, it reminds me a little bit of 2015 and Undertale, where the idea of that game was, it was kind of a postmodern critique of RPG games, but it was kind of doing it in the style of Earthbound, which in itself was a critique of JRPG games at the time.
Yeah.
The whole unique selling point of that game is that nobody has to die.
Yeah.
You can engage with enemies and you can do stuff in a way that nobody gets hurt. And, the game doesn't benefit from that, but it does change in ways based on how you're playing it.
Yeah.
And that is, and that, I can definitely get that from Nier Automata. I mean, I have only finished it once, which I know is an interesting thing to say, but if you know about the game or you know about Yoko Taro games, you know that the end isn't really the end.
Yeah, I mean, to get
the game.
There's four main endings. You play through the game. You play through the game 3 times, realistically.
Yes.
To get, the main completion out of it, and it's a legit really good game. If you like Platinum games, like narrative.
No, totally. And I mean, the only problem I have with Platinum games is that I believe they're games that are designed for people who are better than games than me. When I play a Platinum game, I feel like I'm not quite getting the juice that I'm squeezing out of them, but that's not to say that you can't play the game at an easier difficulty. In fact, one of the things with the chip system is the fact that you can automate a lot of the different aspects of the game.
Yeah.
But if you want to, you can turn these chips off later, and then that gives you more points to spend on different chips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
like you can have one that auto targets enemies, so turn that off.
yeah, you
Free up room.
You can basically, because it's half hack and slash and half shooter, you can have one that deals with all the shooting for you, and you do all the hack and slash, and you can have one that auto parries for you, which
That's cool.
makes it far easier to engage with.
Yeah. And
But-
you don't. One thing I would say as well, even though it is a sequel to the original Nier, you don't need to have play. You don't need to have played the original Nier to enjoy.
Yeah,
Nier
I've heard too many conflicting reports otherwise, but like, I've never played any of Yoko Taro's game. It's not hard to understand. You can sit down and you can get it. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing difficult about
There's
it.
references to the older games, but nothing that breaks the narrative.
No, and I don't even think there's references to stuff which you have to have a higher level of conscious or a understanding of Japanese culture or whatever in order to understand, which, you know,
Yeah, it's
it is a game
fine.
that you can just pick and play.
It's
Like,
definitely related to the earlier Nier, but it exists
Oh,
in its
totally.
own narrative.
I mean, there is a reason why it is called Nier Automata rather than just Automata.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
yes. But should we actually talk about what is going to win our game of the year? Which, of course, is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Oh.
Which we're not actually going to talk about that because none of us want to pay £40 to play it. Instead, we will talk
I
about
have paid for it. I did buy PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yes.
And I completely get it. I get all the hype and stuff. But
But
it's a little bit too there's so many people who love this game, so I gotta be very careful. But
could we talk about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds through the vector of actually talking about Fortnite Battle Royale?
this is the thing. Like as I said earlier, Kieran and James don't really play multiplayer games. But
No.
one of the few multiplayer games that we do play together is Fortnite Battle Royale,
Yes.
which, to be honest, has been really, really fun.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
And it's free, so
Yep, that my favourite thing about it is that it didn't cost me £40 to buy.
how much would you pay for it?
For Battle Royale.
Because you've paid for the full game, haven't you?
That's true, but then
But
the
you
only
had it
reason I got that
discounted.
was because I had quite a heavy rebate from Epic when I had subscribed to the Unreal Engine subscription plan for nearly a month, and then they announced that they were moving over to a free subscription service, and anybody who had ever paid for it would be getting a full refund plus extra gubbins. And so with that money, I was able to buy the normal version of Fortnite for free.
I don't know how much I would pay for it. Just the Battle Royale game.
£15, I reckon.
Yeah,
15 to
maybe.
20.
Maybe. I think it's worth that.
It's a
15
Yeah, I think it's
15 normally, or 20 if they gave me some free skins.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, we better not get into the skins conversation.
No, we
Yeah.
won't.
Well,
might,
technically,
we might.
2017 is the year of the loot box, but whether we actually talk about it or not. I should probably mention as well is that there's quite a lot of games that came out in 2017, some of which we won't be able to talk about, one of them being Battlefront 2, despite the fact that Joe is a very large fan of Star Wars,
I
I would
love Star
say.
Wars, and I loved Battlefront 1. But it
Yes.
just upset me, the loot boxes. Especially because the loot boxes went to do the customization. So, what's the point?
Yeah.
So, no. So I haven't bought it, and I don't think I will.
No.
James,
Sometimes.
we'll talk
Yes.
about Fortnite, but first, you want to list off our list of games that everyone says are worthy of games in the year, but none of us played.
Yeah,
Sure.
James, why
We did-
haven't we mentioned Horizon Zero Dawn?
The reason neither you nor I have mentioned Horizon Zero... So, quickly, let's get out of the way. So, I imagine if you're listening to this, you're probably into the games industry at large, and which probably means that at some point in the next few days, you'll be watching Jeff Keighley's Game Awards. 2 of the 5 titles that have been announced, 2 of which we have already talked about, 1 of which we will be talking about tangentially through Fortnite Battle Royale. 2 of them we have not played, Horizon Zero Dawn and Persona 5. For me and Joe, the reason that we have not played Horizon Zero Dawn or Persona 5 is because neither of us own a PS4, nor find the games interesting enough in order to buy them. Kieran, on the other hand, I believe...
no excuse. So, go on, Kieran. I'm sorry.
That's totally my excuse.
Did you play Horizon Zero Dawn?
No. And I'll tell you for why.
Is it because it looks very boring?
No, because I think it looked excellent.
Okay.
Zelda came out at the same time,
Oh, yeah.
and then I just never got back round to picking it up.
Yeah.
Persona 5.
Persona 5, I think you will play at some point.
Yeah, I'll play them both. It's just that I haven't got around to them as of yet, so can't really discuss them. But that is a small drop in the water of the list that we have.
Okay, so let me quickly reel off the list, also including Horizon Zero Dawn and Persona 5, as follows. Horizon Zero Dawn, Xenoblade 2, Persona 5, Hollow Knight, Divinity Original Sin 2, Cuphead, Destiny 2, Metroid Samus Returns, South Park The Fractured But Whole, Uncharted Lost Legacy, Tacoma, What Remains of Edith Finch, Torment, Ties of Numeria, ARMS, Call of Duty World War 2, Assassin's Creed Origins, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and Star Wars Battlefront 2, loot boxes. I would also like to quickly point out we only talked about Splatoon 2 tangentially. I don't own the game, and I believe that the 2 people who do own the game on this cast, neither of them believe that it should be Game of the Year.
No, it's a very good game.
It was very much more of the same, which is fine. It was great, but yeah.
Not when you said at E3, Joe.
It's the same game. It's the same game.
It's not the same game, but we're not getting into that conversation.
I do hope that this video thing goes on long enough that we will do an E3 discussion, but
yeah,
that will be in 2018.
It's only a couple of hours now, and we'll get around to it.
No,
I work in the morning.
No, same year. But so, let's have a quick chat about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, but not actually talk about PlayerUnknown's Battleground. Let's talk about Fortnite Battle Royale, the points of which I believe could be easily transferred over to PUBG.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me personally, just to put this out there, I'm a vapid, shallow soul, and I don't like the visuals of PUBG, which is why I've never bothered playing it.
That is also why I haven't, though. So I don't think that's too shallow.
I also agree with you. I don't believe it's a shallow point. I just think it's down to purely aesthetics. That being said, I could understand why somebody would enjoy PUBG over Fortnite in regards to the realism aspect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Makes it feel more like a survival title, makes it feel a bit more serious, which is fine. But
we like Disney, so
yeah,
I do. I like Overwatch as well, and all the characters from Overwatch are in PUBG, not PUBG, Fortnite. So that's great.
But yeah, Fortnite's good.
Fortnite is excellent, and I wasn't expecting it to be such a good game based on. I never quite understood the phenomenon of PUBG.
Yeah.
But I think I totally understand it now after playing. I don't know. I think we must have nearly 50 or 60 hours into Fortnite, maybe more than that.
Yeah, there's a lot of game time. I'm not sure exactly how much.
No.
But it's just. I mean, we'll talk about it in terms of kind of. I mean, you've got the building elements in Fortnite, obviously, which do separate it from PUBG. But I mean, in the concept of, dropping 100 players into a map and leaving everyone defend for themselves and last man standing wins, you've been crying out for these games for years.
Yeah.
And it feels it's so weird. Like, I think about this game in regards to it feels like a game that's been around forever. Yet it was invented this game type has been around for a long time, but PUBG was released this year.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just feels like this sort of, they could have done it in the original Battlefield games. They could have done it in
It could have been a
They've done it for
Halo mode.
years.
Like it could have been like obviously
Oh,
not
totally.
100, but like 100 people. But like it's one of those things. Back in the days of Halo 2, a lot of game types came from this. Is that people used to just go in custom lobbies and make their own game. Like, so you'd have
totally.
zombies where you'd start off with like 16 people in a match. You start off with one of them being a zombie, the green guy, everyone else being red on red team. And you'd say, like, if you died from the green guy, which he was only allowed to use a melee weapon, you'd have to join the green team. And like that was like, you just had to, like, it was your own choice. You went into the menu, said switch to green team, and it was an honor system. And those kind of games which like were really, really, really popular, to the point where it's like half of the games I played in Halo 2 were that like zombie games or like other custom games. And it seems the same thing has happened here, where obviously to a bigger extent, where people have actually made mods to other games to make this happen.
Totally.
But it's the same thing where they've gone, you know, look, this is what we want. This is really fun. We're going to do it ourselves. Here it is. And you know what? It is super, super fun.
And it's interesting because, I mean, if you looked at it on paper, like, you can break it down to individual elements in regards to, is 100 players on the same map. It's a survival game. It is, literally, it is, you know, if you die, that is it. It is last man standing. Plus, you don't start the game with any weapons at all or any armaments. The basic loop of the game is you jump in, you scrounge for anything that you can get your hands on, and then you survive. You go out shooting, like, or hunting. Like, that is the loop of the game, and it feels like such kind of a simple thing, yet no one's really done anything like it previously.
It seems like one of those. I mean, I suppose at this point we can call it a genre. I mean, it seems like one of those.
The battle royale genre is very much what it is.
You know, it feels like one of those genres that should have been around since PC gaming in the 90s. You know,
absolutely.
But it just
totally,
because the 100-player limit. Yeah, it's a big part of it, but it's not what makes the genre the genre. You could play this game over 20 people. You could play this game over 10 people, you know?
And scale the map in regards to how many people you're playing it.
Well, exactly. But it's never really been done before. Everyone starts on the same level and jumps in. This last man standing wins. You know, it's something that feels like it should have already existed. And although I personally don't have an interest in PUBG, I've got a lot of respect for it opening that door for the genre.
And even in regards to, like, every game after PUBG, Fortnite included, has taken elements from PUBG which you wouldn't think, well, you'd think, well, why are you doing that? Because you're just dealing with it. But like the parachuting, you go, you could do a version of the game without parachute, but it's like, you see the entire map below you. You see all the landmarks. You see all the fire areas.
And you constantly make a decision as soon as the game starts. You don't click where you want to go. You go on the bus or plane, whatever it is, and you go in a diagonal motion across the map. At which point you see, right, I can jump out to all these different landmarks. And I also have the information of other people jumping out, so I know how busy those places are going to be.
Yeah.
So as soon as the game starts, you have a lot more information than just, let's click spawn here. And that's just super, super clever.
And it's the question of, you know, do you go to the populated areas and you're there for a fight, or do you go to the outskirts and scavenge what you can, you know?
For sure.
Or do you hide in a bush for 20 minutes?
Yeah, James.
But bushwhacking is the way to go. Bushwhacking and hanging back in the bus are the ways to go. Hang 10, sorry. So that's what I mean. Like, you play the game long enough and you end up coming up with different tactics and different terms of stuff, despite the fact it's like the simplest game idea going, like, you know?
Yeah, there's nothing really amazing about Fortnite. Or like in
PUBG,
in the like when you break it down to like simple mechanics, like the shooting isn't very good. The controlling isn't that great. The actual like layout of the land and everything is okay. Like every single point of the game is okay. It's not fantastic.
I will rate Fortnite highly for the visuals. I am a massive fan.
The visuals are really good.
Like,
but what I mean is that it's not a thing of its parts. It's just it's a genre that's really fun, and it doesn't matter how like the other stuff works. It's always going to be fun.
And it's one of those things that people are starting to get annoyed now, because they'll be like, oh, every game's going to start being PUBG, and I'm like, that's fine. Like, there is a game mode that works. Well, I mean, Breath of the Wild has
if
parachutes.
Breath of the Wild had multiplayer, man.
Like, if you did a battle royale game, and like that game is built for doing that.
Yeah, like a battle royale game in Breath of the Wild's engine would be phenomenal.
I mean, PUBG has mining in it. Well, it has, you break materials apart, which is exactly what you do in Breath of the Wild as well. Like, and they both look similar.
Yeah.
So,
There you go, Nintendo. Come on.
yeah.
Come on.
DLC
But, like,
3.
PUBG, Legend of PUBG.
Legend of the Battle
People
Royale.
would have to re-review their Zelda game, and they've already given it 10 out of 10. So
They would have to give it 11 out
they'd
of 10.
have to give it 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like that the Metro review that gave Mario Odyssey 6 out of 5. That's how good it was. But yeah, no, it's just like, and it's like one of those multiplayer games as well that like you can easily play it on your own, just because of that survival aspect to it. It feels like, you could. And again, it's like emergent storytelling. Like every game of PUBG that we've played, of Fortnite Battle Royale that we've played, has never really been the same.
No.
There's matches where we've come in 20th or 30th, and there's matches where quite a few of them we will always get down to the second place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've come second place a hell of a lot in that game.
We've never won it, though.
We've never won it.
Will eventually.
Shame on us.
That's because of our tactics, guys. If you want to come second place, but not first in
Give
Fortnite
us a
often,
fall.
just do that. But also, just don't get into combat at all.
Just wuss out.
Yeah.
Like, that's.
Hide in a
But
bush.
here's the thing: if you want to get to second place, wuss out. But if you only want to be in second place, wuss out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll never get first.
Yeah. Always the bridesmaid. That's the problem.
That's us.
That's this.
Right, what else have we got to talk about?
Well,
I
I think we've talked about games of the year. I think we've kind of come to, again, I think it's hard to unequivocally say what our favourite games this year are. But
I think
what our ultimate
collectively
favourite.
we could agree on Mario.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I said,
But
it's not saying Mario's not. It's just one of my top. It's one of my 3 games of the year.
It has been a weirdly fantastic year for games. Like, that is the thing. I mean, I didn't even Prey and Wolfenstein 2 and some games that I've reviewed on the channel like Resident Evil 7 and all that sort of stuff. They're all excellent, and even small games like Pyre and stuff like that, they've been fantastic.
Yeah.
And you gotta wonder, like, where you're never gonna have enough time to play all of them.
No.
Like, that's the.
I mean, even
And
just
it makes you wonder, like, come next year, like, we're gonna get the same thing, because I mean 2016 was pretty good for games, but
Yeah.
so I
considering,
mean
all anyone's talking about is this being the year of the loot box, then I think, considering in spite of that, we've had probably one of the best years of releases
totally.
in my memory.
And
Absolutely.
to be honest,
We've
that's
had-
because of Nintendo.
A lot of it is,
Nintendo brought it back. Like, that's easy as that.
there's things like if there wasn't Zelda and there wasn't Mario this year, like Nier would be my number one. There's games out that have every right to be a game of the year. That like I said, I haven't played Horizon, but from everything I've read on it, it fits the bill for a game of the year.
Horizon, if that had come out any other year, it would have swept
For
Yeah.
sure.
Game of the Year awards. Easy
I
as
probably
that.
would have bought a PS4 if the Switch didn't come out.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's what would have happened for sure. But
But
hey,
yeah. So
so what's everyone looking forward to? 2018.
So there's, I don't know, the 2018 still feels like not everything that, like, you're still not quite sure what's coming out. I mean, some people are saying, you know, the Spider-Man game's coming out in, well, I mean, Spider-Man game is coming out in 2018, isn't it?
Yeah.
God of War's
it
out
should
in
be.
2018, you know,
Maybe,
Sea of
yeah.
Thieves is out in 2018.
Sea of Thieves, I'm looking so much for, like, considering, like, we've had this Battle Royale discussion and how
Yeah.
much fun it is to play that together. Like,
Oh, totally. Like, that is a game that is built for building your own stories.
I've been playing the insider, the alpha of Sea of Thieves, which you can do every, like, weekend. I can't mention any of it because of stupid NDAs.
No, of course.
Which is weird because, like, it's open kind of to the public, but they still make you, like, sign an NDA. It's weird. Anyway, but yeah, being able to play that between, like, the 3 of us or 4 of us or however many, that's going to be, like, one of my favorites next year for sure.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
If we all get it. If I play on my own, then no.
No.
Yeah, I've to be honest, I'm not really clued up on what's coming out next year. I mean, if Psychonauts 2 comes out next year, and it's as good as it's as good as Psychonauts 1, that will be my game of the year next year.
Totally. Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
If it's anything as good as the first, I mean, I don't know how I'm feeling about it, just in regards to, you know, I don't know, it's interesting with a Rockstar game. It's kind of like when I go into them, I never really feel much about them. And I mean, GTA 5, I just kind of gave up on, really.
I mean, there's a couple of games coming out kind of early next year that I'm hyped for. Means I'll have to crack open my PS4 again. But Dissidia Final Fantasy NT is the first time a Dissidia game's been on a whole console. The Shadow of the Colossus remake. Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games of the time.
Totally.
I need to play that.
So good.
Is that PS4 only?
Let's have a look.
Should be, probably.
Yeah, it is.
Sony only, so...
Yeah.
I think most excitingly for me, Metal Gear Survive.
I know. I know. Like I was going to mention, am I going to eschew your whole... But you did it yourself, so that's fine. To be honest, multiplayer MGS5 with zombies, I can get down with that.
Okay.
It's just that control scheme is just so good. I'm fine with them applying it to games which have nothing to do with Kojima or nothing to do with MGS5. I mean, obviously it is shit how they treated him and shit how they treated the staff that made it, but just
fun game.
Maybe something good could come of it. I don't know, but it does look very good.
And you never know. We Happy Few might actually release.
Yeah, but they have the price now. Sad.
I mean, it's being published by Gearbox now, isn't it? So,
if they make it a proper single-player game, then yeah. But
I think people, when I saw that, I think people were like, the expectation was it's going to be like BioShock, but
for sure.
It's just. It ended up then being a survival game, which was like a total like.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of small games that are coming out, like A Way Out.
A Way Out looks really good.
Well, being designed by the guy who did Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, which I think is a fantastic small game. And it's covering the same idea, which is two characters that are kind of symbiotic. With you know, you need both of them in order to find a way out. So
nice.
It's very.
We got the Zelda DLC coming up.
Zelda DLC's coming out. That's very true. Whatever Nintendo's got on the pipe. I mean, Metroid Prime 4 potentially.
That might happen. Might be my first Metroid Prime game because I'm not going back and playing the others.
Worth it. The good games.
Yeah, I've been watching streams of it, so I'm happy with just watching the stream.
They're pretty good.
You never know. We might actually eventually get the Bayonetta 1 and 2 ports to the Switch, which are inevitably going to happen.
We're probably going to get Wonderful 101 as well, I would have thought.
I hope so. What else? Yeah, that new Yoshi game they teased.
New Yoshi, he looks good. We're probably going to get a Kirby game as well. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I never really buy them. I liked Yoshi's story, but I never really buy Yoshi games.
Woolly World was pretty good. I will say that much.
Yeah.
Anthem, BioWare's new game.
Yeah.
You
game of the game.
Yeah.
trends the game. I can't
But
wait
like,
to.
I know it's like a genre or like a thing that's done to death, where like 4 people play one game. But I'm really liking it. So.
Oh no, totally. I mean, if it has that kind of weirdly good energy that the multiplayer version of Mass Effect 3 had, then it's something to get behind.
We'll see. It'll be interesting for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
UFO 50 is what I'm most looking forward to, though. I will send a link into the group, and you can all have a look at that. But I'm very excited about it. It is a collection of 50 mini-games which have been made by a pretty all-star team of developers, including Derek Hugh, who did Spelunky, and Ojiro Fumoso, who did Downwell.
Cool. I'm gonna play the trailer.
And
So it basically it's harkening back to like stuff like Action 52, which was a NES cartridge which had 52 games on it, but they were all pretty awful. This is like that, but actually good.
Okay.
nice.
So that is something that I am very much looking forward to, as I do like the designer's previous games, and I do like mini games, and they are very smart.
And it's gonna be the thing that you love, where it's like one mechanic. Here it is.
Simple
done
buttons.
really well.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
Cool.
All right. I mean, we can finish up now, or we can
I think we
talk about
can.
loot boxes.
Sign off.
But I don't think there's anything we
No,
can really add.
loot boxes we will save for another time.
I don't think
believe.
there's anything we can really add to the conversation at this point, anyway.
No, absolutely not. So, just to recap, what gets the big D for you?
Big D.
That's the games D.
All right.
James, if you want my big D, it's gonna have to be. Oh, I can't choose. I can't choose.
You have to.
Can it?
You can give it. You don't have to give it to. You can give it to a game. You can give it to a company. You can give it to a concept.
All right, the big D for me then is the Nintendo Switch.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Smashed it out of the park, and Nier Automata soundtrack.
Great,
Cool.
Joe. What gets the big D?
Oh, there's this new YouTube channel that's been out last year. It's been quite good. If
What's it called?
you go to it, it's kind of weird. What's it called? Like indie, I guess, like small little channel.
Yeah,
If you go to youtube.com/ hot cider, spelled with a Y, you might be pleasantly surprised. I'll just leave it at that.
Joe, I believe it's unfortunately it's hot ciderable.
Oh yeah, sorry.
But you can also go to /C/GamesD. If you,
You've had a really good year though, haven't you? Like you've
I feel like
how many subscribers are you on now?
Nearly 650, I believe.
650 in 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah, which is pretty good.
That's really good. So,
That is good. And in the new year, I'll start writing music for you to use again.
That's very kind of you.
how about you, James?
And hopefully we'll be collaborating more often in the new year as well.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, if this works out well, we'll probably do some kind of side podcast thing.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think so. Well,
Maybe.
get Soft Reboot on the go, innit? Like,
What?
Yeah.
What's soft reboot? Shut
What's
up.
off reboot? We haven't. It's not like we've been planning a podcast. For the
I
last
can
year, right?
edit like all of this out. It's not for all. Not for us.
You won't.
You can give me a proper big D if you want. Oh, I can do that if you want, Joe.
What's your big D?
Oh, what do you think? It's got to be Mario, isn't it? Like, either Mario, Odyssey, or just Nintendo continuing to prove to people that they are very good at what they do, which is take an open world concept, do their own spin on it, physics systems, do their own spin on it, having games where you can pick and choose how you want to play them in regards to, do you want open world or do you want linear excursions and mechanical puzzle boxes, and just seeing what they continue to do in the future. I mean, if Metroid Prime 4 has any of the imagination that Odyssey and Breath of the Wild had, it's literally the triple threat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if it's got a dress up element.
Great.
Think of that.
That's been
That'd be great.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. I think we're good.
I think that's
Thank
us.
you very much.
No problem at all.